just going to give everybody 15 more minutes, so please talk amongst yourselves and we'll start broadcast, telecast, back away.
My path is endless. Finish line doesn't exist.
Right, guys. Hi, everyone. First of all, I am at Silverstone with Tom Olithant, and what's happening here, I'm not going to explain. You, Tom, will explain better. So, Tom, first of all, a little bit for viewers. Can you tell about yourself?
Yes, so my name's Tom Olithant. I'm a British touring car driver with Team BMW. I've been racing since I was 10, so that's 19 years ago. And yeah, I'm part of the biggest British racing series, live on ITV4 every race day, and absolutely loving it.
Here today, we had a topic about the sponsorship and what this event in general about.
So I also run a company called Next Level Motorsport. We specialise in helping drivers act more like a business, gaining sponsorship so they can achieve their dreams. This event was put on in partnership with Richardson Racing to try and attract a large number of drivers, to try and educate them on how to approach sponsorship and how to approach the business side of motorsport in a more professional way. We had 6 amazing speakers coming on board to give their personal experiences. Some of them title sponsorship in many different series. Some of them sponsorship gurus. Some of them have found sponsorship for the drivers. Obviously, me as a driver and my personal experiences. So the whole point is to try and raise the profile of motorsport sponsorship and get everybody within the motorsport industry to raise their level of how they're going about the business side. And hopefully it's given some insights and some inspiration to the drivers that turned up to go about it slightly differently and maybe raising a bit more money than they would have done before.
Hello everybody. Thank you. Can everybody hear me at the back? Yes, brilliant. So the minibuses have come back and effectively said nobody's waiting, so I thought we'd give it a start. So first of all, thank you very much for coming. This is the first sponsorship summit that we've hosted. It was an idea that came together with Richardson Racing, who are hosting the event with us, and they've got the very nice cars outside, which after we finish talking, I implore you to go and see them, take some nice photos. I'm sure if you're nice to them, they'll let you sit in them as well. And yeah, the whole point of this talk is to really get a lot of drivers, teams together to discuss sponsorship. We have organised some fantastic speakers from the world of motorsport and business to give you a bit of an insight into what it takes, their approach to it, and hopefully it'll broaden your horizons on how you approach sponsorship. So first of all, my mouse to work. First of all, Next Level Motorsport. So I started Next Level Motorsport with my business partner Chris 3 years ago, and we offer 3 main packages. First of all, we offer the driver sponsorship and brand development package, and this is designed to help drivers, teams act more like a business, come across professionally and make a big impact. The second one is our PR package, and that's effectively once you've got sponsors on board, when you want to get your brand known around the race weekends. From personal experience, I have no time for social media during race weekends, and so therefore I hire somebody to do my own, and effectively this is what we sell on. The third one is our website package. So we build a bespoke website. I'll talk a bit more about websites in a bit, but we aim it at the business side of motorsport and not the bio of the driver. So I just wanted to ask a question. this is going to be a bit of an interactive thing, so I want you guys to sort of put your hands up and ask questions and obviously answer the questions that we put to you. But hands up, who knows why we organise this event? Why do you think?
Try and bring drivers more money.
Okay, try and bring drivers more money. Okay, anybody else? Why did Next Level as a business organise this event?
Mark said, did you have any deals about doing something again?
Pardon? Nice one. Networking. Okay. Anybody else?
Market your product.
There you go. Right. So the first point I wanted to make is the reason a business does anything is to get something back for themselves. Now, you know, I want to help drivers. I am a driver myself, and I think it's very, very important that the entirety of motorsport acts more professional in terms of their sponsorship approach, and it will only help all of our drivers in the motorsport industry. But the first thing I want you guys to start thinking about is people only do stuff that benefits them primarily. Okay, you've got to win them over with a business prospect before you get them emotionally involved. So ultimately, yes, the positives for us and for Richardson Racing and for anybody else that's talking here, primarily is our brands are getting out to 90 motorsport individuals. So, you know, if we start thinking along those lines, then hopefully that'll just help you ultimately with your sponsorship hunt. So, the reason I started Next Level with Chris is ultimately to make money in motorsport. When I deliver talks and seminars to drivers that we work with, some of them are in the room here, the first thing I talk about is right, how are we going to make money in motorsport? Now, most people just think they're going to make money in motorsport by being a successful racing driver, and for some of you in the room, hopefully that is true. But not everybody makes money in motorsport through their racing. If you take all the touring car drivers on the grid, I think only one or two of us make money through our racing. And I would say that would be Colin Turkington and Jason Plato. They sell more sponsorship than it costs to race. They do it in two very different ways. Colin Turkington has a very, very cheap drive because he is 4 times champion and he delivers success on the track. But Jason Plato, because of his TV personality and everything like that, he sells sponsorship vast amounts and then goes to a team and negotiates a really good deal. The rest of us, probably making a loss, being completely honest. A lot of people think that touring cars, once you get there, you get paid. Couldn't be further from the truth. If you want to race with a top team, you've got to raise £500,000 worth of sponsorship a year. And to be quite fair, most of us get close with sponsorship, but you always need family support to back you up on that. So, you know, it's about being creative. The current climate is very difficult. So, you know, the top level of motorsport in the UK are all bringing sponsorship. The other reasons why we started it is, you know, my personal success in getting through to companies and acting like a business. Along my journey, I was made aware of so many talented drivers that I'll hopefully put my hands up, beat me, but failed. And I always questioned myself as to why I was able to continue when, you know, I finished second or third to this driver in karting, in cars, and they no longer race. And it's because they don't embrace the business side of motorsport. And I really enjoy this side of it, and I think it's the most important element. If you can't raise the money to race, you can't race, full stop. I was also made aware of certain drivers being sold what I call the dream by individuals or conmen, and then being let down. And I've seen a few drivers sort of being asked to spend the small amount of money they have by promising the fact that they've got sponsors waiting for £100,000 and you'll earn money in August, and it's just not true. There isn't a golden ticket in motorsport. If there was, trust me, thousands of people would have tried to take it before you guys sat in a room. It's through hard work and dedication, and the reason why I've stood here today is to help you not make that mistake. I don't want any of you, you're all in different situations, I don't want any of you to lose money going down a road that you just won't end very well. And then I wanted to try and change the driver's approach to sponsorship. The reason I wanted to do that is I've been in interviews with many CEOs over my life, and I get turned down for sponsorship for various reasons. Some because they can't do it, some because it doesn't fit with their brand message. But a lot of people say the reason is because they can't get involved in sponsorship. And that's because they've seen other drivers go about it in different ways, and that gives across the wrong message. And even though I'm going about it in the right way, I get the negative effect. So I want to try and help everybody change their perception. So our work at Ethos is based on my personal experience in motorsports, but also through my 2 degrees at university at Warwick. It's based on industry experts, some of which I've spoken to for many years, and they're sat in the room today. So hopefully they can give you the same advice as they gave me. And based on providing the highest quality products. So what to expect from today? So first of all, Sandy, you're going to listen to me for a little bit longer. And then we've got Brian Sims. He's going to talk about making the right impression and getting the first meeting. He's honestly the most impressive person I've ever met about getting in the door and getting the meeting he wants, so I think that'll be really insightful. Then we've got Enzo, and he's coming on behalf of iZone and himself, and he's going to try and change your approach, offer a few different alternatives to sponsorship. Then we've got Pete Landersbert, who's here from Sports Alive. He is currently one of my sponsors, but he offers some very, very interesting and unique business offerings to drivers and teams to try and get a little bit creative with sponsorship and being rewarded for your success. Then we've got Nick Parkin, who is part of Richardson Racing, and he's going to talk about why he became involved in motorsport from his side. Then we've got George Rourke, who runs a company called Visma, who were the title sponsors for the Jonathan Palmer Audi Championship a number of years ago. So he's going to talk about his experiences and why he ended up spending 13 years in motorsport sponsorship. Correct? 13 years?
11.
11. And then we're going to end with a very special guest. We've got Bruce Rennie, who is the Rocket Group's marketing director, and he's the one responsible for the Williams Formula 1 sponsorship deal. So ultimately, it's great to have him here, and he's going to be able to give you guys some advice as to why they're involved in motorsport. So, first of all, this is interactive, so we've got a competition. So on behalf of Rocket are offering 2 prizes. The first place prize is a 3D smartphone, which I've got here. And the second prize is a Bluetooth headset, which I've got here. So what we're going to do is going to play a little game. So I'm going to need everybody to stand up. Sorry. Yeah, the speakers can't win the prizes. So how this is going to work, and it's going to have to be run in honesty because I can't quite see everybody. We're going to play heads and tails. So I'm going to ask a series of questions, and the idea is to whittle it down to 2 final competitors. If you want to go with the heads option, then you put both your hands on your head. If you want to go with the tails option, then you just leave them down by your side. Okay? If you get the answer right, then you stay standing and you can answer the next question. If you get it wrong, please be honest and sit down, otherwise this will last forever. Okay? So I've got a number of questions that I've pre-planned. If we've got too many people that are good at this, then our lovely guests will have to come up with some interesting and difficult questions to challenge you later. So the first one, we'll start off with an easy one for you. Which F1 team do Rocket currently sponsor? So heads is Racing Point, and tails is Williams F1. So on this count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Brilliant. So everybody was paying attention to me earlier. Brilliant. There you go. Okay, so everybody's got the concept, right? Second one, a little bit more tricky. Which BTCC star do Rocket currently sponsor, or 2019 do they sponsor? We've got heads, Nicholas Hamilton. or tails, Jack Goff? Okay. Nicholas Hamilton. So everybody that didn't have their hand on their head, if they could sit down, please. That whittled a few out. Okay. So, who won the BRDC Silver Star in 2019? Now, you've all had plenty of time to walk around the BRDC today. It is on the plaque at some point on the wall. So, there's two options. First of all, Andrew Jordan, my good friend and teammate, and Colin Turkington, my other good friend and teammate. So, heads, Andrew Jordan, or tails, Colin Turkington? 1, 2, 3, go. Oh. Well, Andrew Jordan. Yes. Andrew Jordan. I didn't think that would get anybody. Yeah, so the BRDC Silver Star is done on race results, and although AJ missed 3 races of the season, you only count your top 20, and so therefore AJ has won more races across his season, so therefore beat him by 2 points. There you go. Right, so the lucky few that... Right, okay, this might end a little quicker than I expected. Next question. Right. Who are the BTCC's official tyre supplier for 2020? Heads, Dunlop, or B, tails, Goodyear. 1, 2, 3, go. So, the answer is Goodyear. Dunlop were the title sponsor for the last 15 years, but now Goodyear are taking over for the 2020 season. Right, so we've got, so just hands up who's still in. So we've got 4 people still in. Fantastic, right, okay. That's so, I'm not even going to get the questions with me in them. Right, so, which driver scored Williams Formula 1 only points for 2019 to date? I know there's one more race to go, but this is obviously happening now. Obviously, there's only 2 drivers in contention, so first of all, heads for Kubica, or tails for Russell. When you're ready. Well, everybody knows that one. Yeah, it's Kubica. He scored a point. Which round was that?
Germany.
Germany. That was an interesting race, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Good one to watch. Right, okay, so everybody's still in it. Okay, so, question. How many wins did Team BMW, and that's all 3 BMW cars, achieve in the 2019 BTCC race season? We've got heads at 11, and tails at 10. I said they'd get a bit more difficult. Right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Right. The answer is 11, so down you go. I've got 3 left. Brilliant. Right, it gets a little bit more difficult now. How many British GPs have there been to date? And this is according to very reliable source, Wikipedia. No, I think I got it off the BRDC website, so it is a little bit more reliable. We've got heads, 65, or tails, 70. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. So all of you are out. Brilliant. No, you stay standing. If all of you get it wrong, then you all have to stay in. I can't have nobody. Well, actually, no, I could have. I can take a photo. But I wrote the slides, so no. Right, you all got very lucky. I mean, you can look at each other and go for something a little bit different if you fancy it. Right. Out of those British GPs, how many have been held at Silverstone? 50 for heads, or 53 for tails. So you feel free to look around. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Are we all staying? Yeah, okay, alright. Yeah, 53, alright, you're all still in. Okay. This might have to go down a freeway time. Oh, this one might get you. What year was the BRDC founded? 1928, for heads, or 1934 for tails. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Right, final answer, that's it, final answers, and the right answer is heads. Down you go, right, there's 2 left. Fantastic. So, this actually has worked perfectly, because this is my final question. This is the decider. We finally got to a 1, including me. Who was the only driver in the 2019 BTC season to set 2 fastest laps at one event? And by one event, I mean one full race meeting. Was it heads, Ash Sutton, or B, Tom Olithant? On 3. 1, 2, 3. No surprise, right? But did you change your mind? Yes. Only I wrote the slides. Come on. It had to be me. Well, there you go. So the deciding was actually, does anybody know which event it was? Yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. No? No, I don't like that track. Knock Hill, yes it was. Knock Hill. Had an atrocious race meeting, but got 2 fastest laps. Perfect. Well, sir, if you come to the front, and the second place comes to the front as well. You both won something.
Fantastic.
So, do we want Bruce to hand out the prizes? There is my phone. Congratulations. And there's a headset. Congratulations. That could not have gone better. I've got 2 people down to the final slide. It's like I planned this. Brilliant. Well done, guys. So yeah, now we move on to some more of the serious stuff. Hopefully not too serious. So changing the perception of sponsorship. So just a little bit of an introduction to me. I've been racing since 2001. I started in karting, moved my way all the way up. I got very lucky. I was on the verge of quitting in 2011, and I got the opportunity to go car racing and never looked back really. So that's sort of my history. I had a lot of fun along the way, which is the main thing for everybody. So I just want to start with talking about the current sponsorship situation, in my opinion. So, again, a question for the audience. What do you believe are the biggest issues in motorsport currently?
Brexit.
Brexit. Boom, brilliant, okay. That's definitely one. Money, yeah.
Time wasters.
Time wasters, alright, yeah, that's a good one.
Global warming.
Global warming. Do you know, I put that in the slide and then took it out. But very good point.
Types of sponsorships you can have.
Types of sponsorships you can have. Okay. So, yeah, one more?
Your own personal profile.
Okay, your own personal profile. So, obviously those are some good ideas, and I came up with some of my own. So, I said Brexit, first of all. The current economy, they kind of go together. The increase in costs in motorsport, they keep going up year on year on year, and we don't quite get anything more back in return. Is it an equal playing field? That's something that's very hot topic in touring cars with boosts. I won't go into that too much detail, but you know we definitely didn't get the advantage there. Motorsport politics, commercial offerings of club championships. I know there's a wide variety of drivers here. Obviously, the BTCC offers some amazing commercial opportunities for sponsors, but obviously the lower levels of motorsport in this country don't really offer a lot. And then obviously moving up the motorsport ladder, that has a number of different challenges. But in my opinion, the biggest issue is there's too many people treating motorsport like a charity and not a business. Okay? Now, you know, it might not be anybody in the room now, but there's so many times that I've seen GoFundMe pages and people sending mass emails out, effectively just asking people to fund their dreams. And it's not how motorsport should be working. It's a £9 billion industry. Everybody's in it to make money, and we need to treat it as such. So I've got a couple of examples and I did write these myself, so they might be a little bit extreme, but effectively, I mean, as a show of hands, who one has seen an email like that, or two, who has written one like that? And I'll be the first person to put my hand up to say I have done it at some point in my life. Yes? Read it out. Sorry, yes, of course. I'm a very talented racing driver. I've won my local karting championship and hold the lap record for my class. My dream is to race in F1. Would you please sponsor me and help me fulfill my dream? In return, I can promise your logo across my race car and transporter, tickets to all my races. So who's written that or seen something like it? Okay. Do you want people in the room? That's good. The second one is GoFundMe pages. So again, and I did write this, so obviously I haven't seen one like this, but our little Jimmy has had a dream of becoming an F1 champion ever since he could talk. He's currently 5th place in his local championship, but we can't finish the season due to an engine blow-up from the last race and our kitchen flooded, which has taken all our spare funds. I made it a little bit more extreme. Please help us raise £5,000 for our angel to win his championship and become the next F1 star. Okay? Now, has anybody seen that or done it themselves? Seen it? Yeah. Okay? Now, you know, that's fine. And the whole point of this is to try and raise everybody's knowledge about motorsport sponsorship. And if you're sat there and this is sort of how you've approached it before, that's not a bad thing. Good on you for coming here and trying to recruit, because that has a very short lifespan, and ultimately, in my opinion, it's ruining the term sponsorship, because so many companies believe that even if you provide a good business proposal and pitch to a company, their customers are still only going to see this. So we need to stop this type of thing so that more companies are going to be interested in sponsoring. So, to sum up, with the greatest respect, at the start, nobody cares about your dreams and ambitions. Now, that's a very extreme statement, and I do always put it at the end, at least not at the start. I always approach every single new business, every single new client, every single new person I ever meet, and I just believe, you know, why would they be interested in my hopes and dreams? They've only just met me, you know, I might be sending an email, I might be ringing them on the phone. You know, they've got their own family, they've got their own hopes and dreams, they've got their family's hopes and dreams, they've got so many people to care about. Why should they care about you? And yet the first thing drivers a lot of the time do is try and sell their hopes and dreams and aspirations. What we want to get you to do is start by selling the business opportunities to that company, so that then you can start a dialogue, get to know that person, and eventually they will care about your hopes and dreams. All of my sponsors are invested in me because they got to know me and they now want to support me to get to where I want to get to. They also want to get all the business opportunities that I offer them. But first of all, you know, don't lead with yourself. So, some of you might have seen this before, because I delivered a few of these slides at the Ginetta Scholarship, but the principle still stands. So as a driver, in my opinion, we have a few responsibilities. So first of all, our driving skill, okay? Learning new techniques to drive a car. Obviously we've got data and video analysis that goes with that. But then we've got the motorsport business, and that is one of our responsibilities. It's not your parents' responsibilities, it's the driver or the team owner, it's your responsibility. Sponsorship, networking, marketing and media, a website specifically to sell your business and not to show the world how good you are, and social media, providing a sellable product, growing a sellable product, which is something I'll speak to in a minute. What I'd recommend for everybody to do, and I got this piece of advice a long time ago, is to go away from here and create a 5-year plan as to where you will want to get to in 5 years. Think about it in terms of financial, technical, networking, license grading, exposure that you'll need, and just plan for the future, because the sooner you understand what you need to get, the earlier you can start trying to get it. Some of you might be able to afford the next year or the next 2 years, and so therefore work on year 3, 4 and 5. I'm currently working 2 years in advance for my deal come 2021, 2022, and you know, it gives me 18 months to effectively network with new sponsors and bring them on board, which is something that you'll need. So, also I didn't mention at the start, obviously we've provided you with notepads and pens. We'll have a Q&A at the end, so any questions you've got for any of us, write them down and then you can ask at the end. So what I call the sponsorship hunt. There's three main things that I believe you need to start with. You need to start by understanding why a company would sponsor you, and we've got some fantastic speakers to speak about that a little bit later. There's many things. I put brand awareness at the top because it's the first thing everybody says when I ask them. It is the least important in my opinion. Some companies will want brand exposure, but ultimately it's how they activate that brand exposure, is how they sell more product, and that's what they're truly interested in. Obviously there's a few examples down here as to what they might be interested in: promoting a product, increasing sales, stand out from their competitors, engage in an activity that their competitor currently does, social media marketing, greater engagement with their target market, passion for motorsport. That last one is always quite important. The final bit of the puzzle is if they really do like motorsport, then they're much more likely to invest in it. The second thing is knowing your product, and by product I mean what you have to sell, and that isn't your success or your dreams, it is your social media, your TV coverage if you're lucky to have it, VIP tickets, experience days. Your audience influence is something I always talk about. A driver has influence over their audience. It's different from just putting a TV advert on when everybody today goes on their phones when TV adverts come on, so nobody's really paying attention. You all scroll past on Facebook or Instagram when a pop-up appears and you don't want to read it, but the beauty of us as drivers and teams is that we have influence. People listen to us, we have a voice on social media, and we have a voice around the paddock, and we can use that to our sponsors' benefit. Ambassadorial roles, going to the company, giving talks, turning up with your car, engaging with the customer, engaging with your client. Incentive schemes, that's a real big one, and how a lot of big sponsorship deals work. And branding, obviously the last one. And then from that, this is something that we created based on my experience and based on my research and talking to some various experts in the field, is to come up with a procedure to go about it. Okay? Sponsorship as a whole is a very big, daunting prospect. Okay? And it's easier if you split it down into easy, simple steps. This is just our example. The most important there is research, and that's at the top. If you don't do point number one properly, the rest of it will all fall down. Okay, what you need to understand is from my previous two slides, is what you have to sell and why somebody would be interested in that, and then you need to find and target specific companies that will be interested in you. So, a company that might be interested in you will be different than a company that will be interested in me, because I have a different offering. I race with BMW, I race on the touring cars. I've got a lot of commercial benefits, I've got a lot of links in with a big manufacturer. Okay, but you guys might have something else unique. It might be away from motorsport as well. It doesn't need to be just at the track. It could be your family business. It could be a network that you have. It could be a mass email, or you could have a very, very large social media influence. It's all about understanding that, finding a company that wants to benefit from that, and then targeting them specifically. Finally, marketing and media. First of all, very, very important to have a website. Okay. Now, if anybody Googles me, my website will come up, and what you'll recognise is that it's all about the business. Okay. Yes, I've got information about my history, how I started, my recent race results, all of that sort of stuff on there. But the first thing you see on it is the business side. It's trying to sell a product. It makes that a very easy thing. The only people that necessarily these days Google you and look at your website, people you give your business cards to, people you meet at networking events. If somebody just wants to know more about you, they're going to go on Instagram or social media. If you hear of a drive or if you hear of a new product, hands up, who looks at social media first? Exactly. So the website should be the business side, and you personally, your success should be on your social media pages. The second thing is a sponsorship prospectus. Now, This is 3 pages from my last year's 2019 one. I linked it with BMW because that was a big selling point for me, so the front cover was very BMW influenced, and then I've got my own brand running through it. It's graphically impressive, it stands out, but it's all leading you to the information I want you to know, okay? The total amount of information about me in this sponsorship prospectus is 1 3-sentence paragraph. That is all I talk about, okay, about me. The rest of it is all on the business side. It's all what I can sell, what I can offer, why they should be interested in dealing with me, okay? And it's very important that you have one of these so that you can make an impression on anybody you send emails to or speak to. Like the one I'm giving you today, it's about having an effective marketing presentation. So after you get the initial meeting in the diary, you'll obviously be there and you'll obviously want to give a bespoke presentation. Okay, this is your chance to look professional. It should match with all the stuff that you've sent them before, and it should be editable so that you can give a bespoke offering to that company through research and through what you believe, speak to them on the phone, and the information you've gathered. You can then put something to them. It's amazing that, you know, if you have one of these that looks impressive, it's amazing instantly. Their impression of you just changes when you go into that meeting. They've never met you before. If you can put one of these on the screen or on your laptop, it just shows that you mean business and that you're there to sell them something professionally. And then finally is social media. This is one most of you will be aware of. It's not social media in terms of your personal social media. It's growing a brand. And it's growing an influence presence online. So it should be based around your racing. I have different pages for my own private use versus my company and my racing. And I use it to promote what I do, the life of a racing driver. People follow on social media to understand behind the scenes stuff, and they want to live through you. And that's great because, you know, they're very engaged. I get very good engagement through. And that's great for my sponsors. It's also good to point out that you also want to promote the good and the bad, okay? But some of the best engagement I get is when I've had a bad race and I'm open and honest about it. There's too many people who just promote good stuff, and ultimately that's the problem with social media. But build a brand around your racing and try and grow that as soon as you can, because that is a very sellable product now. When I went to interview with BMW, they asked me for an hour about social media and nothing else. They only wanted to know how I could help them promote their social media, because that's their complete sales tactic over the next 3 years for their new 3 Series, which we launched. So finally, the last thing I thought I'd pick up on is Brexit, and I'll do it very quickly because it's ever changing and who knows what will happen tomorrow. But most people believe Brexit is a really negative thing, and it's a very easy out for a company to blame Brexit. Okay, I've had it a year ago when I moved into touring cars. I had a lot of money promised to me, and it all, one by one, over the course of a couple of months, fell through, and they all blamed Brexit. Now, that's understandable. People are going to keep their money in their pocket if there's uncertainty, because they don't know whether they'll need it in the future. The brilliant thing about Brexit is when it eventually ends and we fall on one side or the other, change and uncertainty brings great opportunity. Okay, at that moment, every single industry and market will change, some more than others, but some companies will have an advantage through the outcome of Brexit, and they'll be throwing a lot of money into marketing to build market share and take that off their competitors that are at a disadvantage. And it's a great opportunity to try and gain sponsorship, because it gives you, you know, they've been saving their pennies for 3 or 4 years now, not spending on marketing because they don't know where to spend it. And now some companies will really want to spend big in the UK, and it's a great opportunity for sponsorship. And I actually see there being a big influx in new companies across the next couple of years when it all finally sorts itself out. So treat it as an opportunity and don't treat it as a negative. Don't let it get you down. You can always make the most of any given situation.
Yeah, so lots and lots been told today about the sponsorship, yeah. But you know, when I've been listening, I have a question, because I found that not the problem to find sponsorship, but the problem, I think racing drivers have a problem to approach sponsors.
Yeah, I think the number one issue is getting in the door. I've got close to 100% record when I speak to the right person in the company, getting them to do something for me, whether that's sponsoring or looking through my proposal, giving me feedback, or putting me in contact with somebody else. I think the main issue that drivers have is getting in the door. It's certainly an issue that I've had through my career. Some are better at it than others. And that's the specific reason why I invited Brian Sims to talk today, is because he's the best person I've ever met in getting a meeting organised from cold calling. And it's a skill in itself, but I believe that racing drivers need to go back to the old school ways of selling, stand out from a crowd, get away from emails, get away from LinkedIn, and try and stand out and be different, and get that opportunity to speak to somebody and win them over with a professional business opportunity and a lot of passion.
So, you've all had enough of listening to me. So I'm going to invite on to the stage my first speaker. He's author of 3 books, which are fantastic, and I've known him for a little while, and I honestly believe him to be the one true sponsorship guru. He's landed multiple deals across the globe, including Formula One for sponsorship, and he's also started some amazing organisations within the motorsport industry. And he's honestly the best person I've ever met to get past the gatekeepers, and I believe that is the biggest challenge in sponsorship, is getting a meeting with the guy that decides. So we'll welcome Brian Sims to the stage.
Hello everybody. What do I say after a build-up like that? You're looking at me and you're thinking, my goodness, way back in time, in the midst of time, I was your age. I wanted to be a racing driver. I was a salesman. I started off, my first job was fitting wheels to wheelbarrows. Then I had to sell the wheelbarrows. Then I became a truck tire salesman at Goodyear. And then I went to Xerox and sold photocopiers. And then I went to the British Grand Prix at Brands Hatch in 1968. Yes, it did exist. Believe it or not, there was motor racing then. 1968, though, was an extraordinary year, because not only was it a Grand Prix at Brands Hatch, which in my view, Tom, sorry about this, my favourite circuit, race on Grand Prix circuit at Brands, it was the year that sponsorship effectively started. Connie Chapman, the boss of the legendary Lotus Formula One team, noticed a change in the rules and regulations that affected motorsport, allowing for the first time ever advertising on racing cars. Up to that moment, British cars were green, Ferraris were red, German cars were silver, Australian cars green and yellow, but no advertising. He went out and negotiated a deal with John Players to brand his 2 Lotus Formula One cars for Jim Clark and Graham Hill in the colours of the Gold Leaf cigarette brand. Sponsorship had arrived. It started a revolution, not just in motor racing, but across the world of sport, because it meant money was arriving into sport. That was 1968. 4 years later, I decided I had enough of watching motor racing on television. I wanted to be a part of it. And I went out and negotiated my first ever sponsorship deal. I did a course at the Jim Russell Racing School, so I'd sat in a racing car, but I'd never raced. And I managed to do a substantial deal that allowed me to buy a Formula Ford racing car and pay for a season's racing. And I did that for one reason. What do you think has changed in the world of business since that day in 1974 in terms of the way we do business, how business is today? What changes do you think I've seen in my time? Anyone, quickly?
Digital.
Sorry?
The internet.
The internet. Technology. We didn't have pocket calculators even then. The world was a different place from business. But there was one thing that has never changed to this day, and it never will change. And there are many business people in this room, I include some of the speakers, and I think you'll agree with me. And I discovered in doing the first deal, and it was with a nightclub in Maidstone, and that thing that has never changed. A company needs to sell more products or more services to stay in business. The way it does the selling has changed greatly with the innovation and development of new ideas. But that bottom line, and I realized that if I could talk to a businessman and help him sell more products or more services, ideally in a measurable, sustainable way, that conversation would always take place. And that is my first message I want to get across to you today. Never confuse doing business with the way business is actually done. The business is there for one reason, am I right, everybody? To sell more products, more services. How they do that has changed. Never forget that. As you can see, I went on and I built a 45-year career for myself in international motor racing based on one skill. Guess what? That skill wasn't race driving. I was under no illusions after 2 years of racing in the National Formula 4 Championship alongside Nigel Mansell, Derek Daly, Derek Warwick, Jim Weaver, David Kennedy, Jeff Lees. All of these drivers, 15 of them, went into Formula 1, which says a lot for that fantastic series called Formula 4. But I recognized that whilst I might not be the best driver, the more money I had, the better the team I could drive for, the better the equipment, the more time I could spend. And that was a lesson I learned very, very quickly. And sponsorship is the one skill, and the only skill, when I say sponsorship, the ability to sell sponsorship, bring sponsors on board. It's the only skill I've ever had. I was born, I learned the skills of professional selling with Xerox as a photocopier salesman, and I applied that to the world of business. And that has given me this amazing world, from racing Formula 4s for BMW in South Africa, for Mercedes. I was a factory driver in touring cars in Mercedes in South Africa. I was manager of the Formula 1 Grand Prix sector when Nicky Lauda led the driver's strike in 1981. My first professional deal, the second photograph on the top left, SodaStream. Who's heard of SodaStream? The budget, now you're going to cry. You're going to cry when I tell you. The budget to do a full season National Formula 4 Championship, 65 races in the year, £12,500 in 1977. The sponsorship deal that I got there, £27,000 from SodaStream, allowing me to take a salary and turn professional. And I never, ever raced without a major sponsor. Not because I was the best racing driver out there. My goodness, I've raced on the track with some of the best racing drivers in the world. But Group C racing in South Africa I did. I raced against Derek Bell, Jochen Mass, these guys in the Rotten Forces. And I had plenty of time to see how good these guys were as they passed me time and time again. But who cared? I was living my dream. And I worked hard to do that. Sponsorship is something that is very special to me. When I stopped driving, guess what? I set up a racing school, South Africa's first motor racing school at the Kyalami Grand Prix circuit. How did I do that? Where did I get the money from? Sponsorship. And then Formula 1 came knocking on my door, literally. I got a phone call in, 1990, from a company called Lola Racecars. You heard of Lola? Lola were famous because the Grand Prix cars of that, the Indy cars of that era were Lola chassis. So actually every car on the grid of the Indy 500 was built at Huntington. And Mike Blanchett, who was the CEO of the company, rang me and said, Brian, Eric Broadley, our chairman, wants to set up a Formula One team. We need somebody to find money. I came back from South Africa and I went and worked with Lola and learned so much about sponsorship. It enabled me to, the photograph at the bottom, what car is that outside the Houses of Parliament? I was a Jordan Formula One car. I didn't work for Jordan, but with sponsorship I was able to set up an organisation called the MIA. Has anyone heard of the Motorsport Industry Association? I started that in '94 with a group of other influential figures from the motorsport industry, with a sponsorship from Accenture and Hewlett-Packard. So all the time, this one skill is helping me live my dream of working in motorsport, getting paid well, making money. After I set up the MIA, I stayed for 3 years and got bored running a trade association. And I was asked to be the head of motorsport for a new sports marketing agency, who had just negotiated to be the sponsorship agency for the Benetton Formula One team that had won the world title, of course, with Michael Schumacher. And so I joined the team, and within this first year, literally cold calls, no leads or anything else, I brought Gillette into Formula One for the first time with a multi-million-pound deal. Same skills that got me that first deal in nightclub, helping them to sell more products or services. Brand awareness. Think Gillette needs brand awareness? No way. And then the most amazing deal that I'm most proud of in my book, same principle, FedEx in Memphis. FedEx, one of 6 major international parcel companies, logistics carriers, more aircraft than British Airways, more vans on the road than you can imagine, 50,000 vans. I managed to do a multi-million-pound sponsorship deal that brought FedEx into Formula One for the first time. And guess what? It wasn't as difficult as doing my first Formula Ford sponsorship deal. Why? Because I had more to offer. So this world of motor racing, you don't have to, and it's the title of my new book, my autobiography, you don't have to be a champion to be a winner in the motor racing game. You have to work hard. You have to understand what the business world wants and how to help them sell more products and services. Now, I'm here to talk about getting meetings because that's one thing that I have learned, and I learned it the hard way. How many of you have seen the film Le Mans 66? Hands up. What was the thing you remember most about it anyway?
The accent.
The accent.
The lack of funds, he went bust.
Sorry?
The lack of money, he ain't money, he went bust.
The lack of money.
No, getting to the right guy.
Getting to the right guy. Fantastic. Anybody who is looking for sponsorship, if you haven't seen that film, go and see it, because it gives you an insight of something that I learned, by working with and then approaching the corporate world. And there's a wonderful line in the film where Carroll Shelby, Matt Damon, says something along the lines of, hey, you know what? The corporate world, you know how it works? You work for your boss. You try and please him. He has a boss. He's trying to please him. He has a boss. He's trying to please him or her. And then at the very top, there's a man who is the boss and has to please the shareholders, but who makes the decisions. And if you can get to that person, that's the way you get into the corporate world. Now, I'm not so naive as to think that you're all going to go charging off to the Coca-Colas of this world to get sponsorship. In your early stages, it's not going to be the big international corporates that you're going to get deals with. It's going to be SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, up to £50 million type companies. And I thought it would be really good to have a look at what it's like to run a small business. want you to imagine that you are the owners of a small furniture manufacturing company. You started it 15 years ago. You employ 25, 26 people, got a small factory making this bespoke furniture. You have worked your butt off building this company up. You haven't bought yourself flash cars, you haven't gone on expensive holidays, you haven't spent money on a manor house. You've invested back into the business. But times are tough. It's not Brexit, it's a financial crisis across the world. And so sales have become very hard. Things haven't gone well. It's Monday morning. It's raining. You missed the train. You've walked out to your car, you've got a puncture, so you run to the station. You've missed the train. You stand outside, you're getting wet, you're like a drowned rat. You get to the office, and there's an envelope sitting on your desk. Your PA has offered her resignation. Her husband's got a job in America, and not surprisingly, she's going there. She's been your rock all these years. You look at the post. It's full of bills, invoices, final demands. You look at your sales figures, down for the third month in a row. You've got a sinking feeling in your stomach. Your diary reminds you, this afternoon you've got to go into the factory and you've got to make 3 workers redundant, guys who've been with you for a long time. It's not funny. And then a phone call tells you that your largest customer has gone into liquidation. How bad can your day get? And then an email arrives, maybe a chink of light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if you can read that from the back of the room, so I'm going to read it for you. To the Managing Director, Real Oak Furniture Company. Dear Sir, I'm a racing driver who last year finished 3rd in this year's UK National Karting Championships. It's my ambition to turn professional and eventually race in Formula 1. I broke the lap record at 4 circuits this year. I had an opportunity to race for a top Formula 4 team next season, but I require a budget of £200,000. Would your company be interested in sponsoring me? In return, I'll put your company branding on both sides of the car and give you 3 tickets to each event. You'll also get some good TV exposure. When would be a good time to meet up and discuss this? Thank you, Timothy Hopeful. What do you think the businessman feels? Is that his saving grace? Is that the light at the end of the tunnel? Is he sitting there thinking, wow? Yes? Would this be more like it? Okay, I've exaggerated that day. But those of you in business, have you had days like that? Have you had days when you're worried out of your mind how you're going to find the money to pay your staff? Because that is the real world of business. Let's imagine, however, that this email had arrived. And again, for the benefit of those right at the back, I'll read it to you. For the attention of Mr. D. Kerridge, Managing Director, Real Oak Furniture. Dear Mr. Kerridge, I've been looking at your company's excellent website to see that you employ a national sales team across the UK. Would I be right in suggesting that in these difficult economic times, you're probably always looking for innovative, cost-effective ways of motivating and incentivizing your sales professionals to increase your share of the furniture market? I've created a dynamic and, importantly, a measurable sales incentive program which I feel might offer your company an innovative way of generating an increase in sales activity. The program is designed to operate on an annual basis and uses the proven excitement of motorsport to encourage and motivate your sales professionals to reach even higher levels of sales. I have a short visual presentation in respect of its capabilities, and would very much appreciate an opportunity to show this and discuss how it might be tailored to suit your company's specific requirements. I'm going to be in Guildford on either Monday or Thursday of the week commencing the 26th of March. Which day would be most important for you? What was the difference between that and the previous email? Anybody, come on, please.
It's not
Yes?
saying that. You're offering a solution to the problem or potential solution.
You're offering a potential solution. You don't know that that is a problem. What you said, though, is through your research, and you know the market and you understand the business a little bit, what business world, it's quite likely in these tough times that he is having a difficulty, or she is having a difficulty motivating the sales team. You're not making a stupid assumption. And what is that about? It's about his business. What else?
Seems very personal. Like to also like to say you've done a bit of research, but
It's personal, and a part of that is because you've addressed it to somebody. The first one was sent to the managing director. This one is addressed to Mr. D. Carriage, managing director. Tiny point, but it makes all the difference, believe me. What else? Yes?
You're offering something. You're not asking something.
You are not asking for something. Tom made a very valid point at the end of his talk there about your dreams don't matter to the business world. Motor racing doesn't matter to the business world. What matters to that man in his business? Getting enough money in every week to pay his staff, number one. And is motor racing going to help him do that on its own? Of course it's not. So what we're looking at here is solutions. And if we look at those 6 main differences, let's just run through those. First of all, the communication is based on research. And you can remember what Tom said about research. And one thing that really makes me very cross when I talk to a lot of young drivers today, when I say you've got to do this research, and they look at me and go, why do I want to have to do all that work for? And I said, when I did research, you had to go to the library, you had to go to the reference library, you weren't allowed to take the books out, you had to sit there going through Kelly's trade directories, writing down all the information. You can go on holiday in Tenerife and sit there on the beach and do your research on a laptop. There is no reason today why you cannot do good, thorough research on a company. You don't have to know every single thing about it, but you can get a picture from reading and going on company profiles. So that's the first thing. Second thing, it's addressed to a specific individual. It identifies a potential requirement. It isn't the story of me. He's not interested in whether you want to be a racing driver or you want to be a film star. It matters not one iota to him, so why waste his time telling him what you want to be? I'm being probably very cruel, hard, and you're thinking, frankly, this isn't what I wanted to hear. Those of you in the business world, is this the real world? And it's a tough business. It's offering a potential solution, and it's not about the racer's needs. So that story, in terms of sending out letters, emails, whatever you send out, that is your first point of contact if you use that method. You've got one chance to create a first impression. And that first email that came on there, where would that have ended up? In the bin. What do you think might have happened with this one? Good chance that if you phoned the businessman, that young guy, Timothy Hopeful II, would get a meeting to go and talk about the incentive program that he has based on motorsport. So, now, a lesson I learned a long, long time ago, and I still don't know why it works today, but as Tom will bear this out. It worked for me in the last week twice. So I know it still works. I'm still using it to get to the right person in the company. Who is the person within a corporate or within a business who can help you the most? Any ideas who it might be? Yes?
PA,
PA to who?
the marketing director, or
PA to the marketing director. Anyone else?
Receptionist.
Sorry, I can't hear.
You look at the door in the first place, receptionist.
The receptionist. Okay, let's have a look for a minute at the company structure. The film Rush, the boss of Ford Motor Company. Now, if you want to go into the corporate world for sponsorship, which later in your life and career, as you move up the ladder, might be applicable, if you could get a meeting with the CEO, that would be probably the ideal scenario. The chances of that are very slim. However, the one person who I have found that I can get to virtually every time I phone is this person. Sometimes a lady, sometimes it's a guy. She is the EA, the executive assistant, or PA to the CEO of the company. She has her finger on the pulse of what goes on in that company more than just about anybody. She probably is older, because to get to that position, she's probably had to work for quite a long time. But if you can get to see that person and get her to help with you, now I'm not going to keep saying her or he, let's say her for this particular role, then she can do this. She can get in straight away to the CEO. But she can also get in to the management. She can pick up her phone and say, it's Bruce here, the CEO's PA. I want to speak to you about, and they will listen. The boss's PA. Or she can get in to other directors. And whilst it's always great if you can get in straight away to see the CEO himself or herself, that is fantastic. The chances are it will be very different. And what tends to happen is you might get a meeting with somebody else. But the beauty of that, and this is so, so important, if you go to a company and get stuck in what I call the middle management sort of section down there, and you're not getting anywhere with your idea, because people in companies tend not to want to put their head too far over the parapet. They don't want to be the person that if it goes wrong, they said, well, we've never sponsored motorsport until you suggested it. That's all gone. It's blown out. It hasn't worked for us. It's been a disaster. No, let's stick to what we do. We always do football sponsorship or cricket sponsorship or tennis. Let's stick to that. So you want to get to the point where you can speak to somebody who's got the power and the vision to look at things outside the box, lateral thinking. And the CEO would be that ideal person. If you, however, get told that we'll set you up with a meeting with our marketing manager, fantastic. Because if it's come from the top, that meeting has been organised, then you can always go back to the top. Once you get into a company at that level, it's very difficult to go above somebody's head. And that is the lesson of business life. That is the reality of it, whether we like it or not. Now, that's fine, you're thinking, but how do I get to speak to the CEO's PA? Well, the strategy that works for me all the time, first of all, you've got to prepare for the call. It's no good saying, oh, there's a company I think might be interested. Let me phone the CEO's PA and speak to her. What are you going to say? May I ask your help? May I ask for your help? Now, maybe it's because I'm old, but I've found that if you ask people for their help, most people actually quite like being helpful. Imagine you're staying at a party and you're feeling a bit queasy, you've got a headache. and you say to somebody, oh, I'm really not feeling well, and the person in front said, I've got these tablets, take these, they'll get rid of the headache, you find you don't like being told. But if that person says, you know something, I had a headache recently, a really bad one, and I tried these new tablets, I think I've got some here. If you'd like to try them, please feel free. What is the difference between those approaches? People like to help other people. They don't like being told what to do. And it's the same here. May I ask for your help? And the answer I normally get is, oh, okay, I don't know, out finger on the pulse of everything that goes on. But yes, in what way can I help you? And I would then explain that I'd like to present, not sponsorship, I hate the word, you have to use it though. I want to present an innovative business development opportunity to your company. But, as you can probably imagine, it's very, very difficult knowing quite where to start. May I make a suggestion? I'd like to send an email through to you, if I may, with an outline of the opportunity, very half-page outline. And I'd like you to have a look through that and let me know who you feel would be the most relevant person, if it isn't Mr. Jenkins, your boss, as to who I should present this opportunity. And what is the best way to go about putting something together in that respect. And you know something? I find 9 times out of 10 that lady will say, okay, yeah, send it to me, just a brief outline, I'll have a look at it, and if I think it's appropriate, I'll get back to you and say either you might need to see this person or whatever. And it works so often. The Gillette deal, one of the reasons I did that deal was because Barbara Gell was the PA to Alan Boat, the president of the shaving division of Gillette Europe. After we'd done the deal, I went out to lunch several times with Alan. He said to me, you know, Brian, he said, you were very smart. In Gillette, we change our presidents every 2 years. We go around the world. He said, Barbara has worked for 16 different presidents in this office. And if she walks in my office and said, had this guy on the phone, he's got an idea which I think a bit rough around the edges, but might be worth looking at. Can we organise a meeting? I know that I get that meeting and it will be worthwhile. But if she walks in and said, I've got this rude guy on the phone looking for sponsorship for motor racing, we're not interested, are we? What am I going to say? And that applies across the board. That person who sits there is not an enemy. She can be your greatest friend. I got a phone call one day from a company called Colgate-Palmolive. You've all heard of Colgate-Palmolive? They make soap, toilets, toilet products, toothpaste. And I tried this. And 6 weeks afterwards, we didn't do the deal. But I had a meeting, but we didn't do the deal. I got a phone call from that PA. And she said, Brian, I had to phone you because she said, I just found out we're not going ahead with the proposal that I had looked at for you. And she said, I'm so sorry, but I wanted to say thank you because she said, it is so rare that somebody actually phones me, speaks to me as if I'm an intelligent human being that understands what goes on in this company and asks for help. And I'm so sorry we couldn't, but if there's anything, any other time that you want to approach us about and I can help, please let me know. And that, believe it or not, works. However, I'm also aware that not everybody feels confident on the phone. Some people are terrified of using the phone. Is there anybody here who really doesn't feel confident phoning the company cold on the phone? Good. I'm sure a few haven't put their hand up, but if you're honest with yourself, it's not easy. You have to practice it. And that's what I did. I used to practice this with friends until I could get it right. So what else can you do? This is we come on to the final part now to look at other options. That one being one. Email. What's wrong with email? How many emails do you think that man with the furniture company gets a day? How many emails do you think the CEO of a big motor dealership gets a day? Roughly? Hundreds. Do you think he looks through the ones where he's got to fork out money first, or the ones that are important for making money? Okay. So, quite often, you see inbox full. I never use email unless I've spoken to somebody first and they're expecting the email. That's different. When did anyone in this room, hands up and be honest, last write a letter? I don't mean necessarily in ink, but or printed a letter to somebody. Hands up. Now, wasn't that fantastic? Hands up those who received or sent emails. I send letters to companies. Why do you think I do that?
Different.
I don't post it. I send a letter or a prospectus by courier. Because what happens when you send it by courier? To be signed for. People in life, all of us, we're all inquisitive. If 100 emails come flocking through, I don't need to look at every single one. But if a courier walks in and says there's an envelope addressed to you, sir, I'll say thank you. And what will I do? Open it. Try and be different. Hundreds and thousands of people are out there in the world trying to sell sponsorship. The motorsport, cricket, football, the theatre, the arts, schools, all manner of things. You've got to be noticed. You've got to be different, be imaginative. And if you can't invest in paying a courier £30 maybe to send that pack through to companies, then quite frankly you shouldn't be looking at going motor racing, because you're going to have to spend a lot more in the motor racing world. So that really brings us to an end to what we're talking about, getting meetings. You know what my favourite is? There are other ways of doing it, but whatever you do, remember, if you can help a company sell more products or more services in a sustainable, measurable way, in my experience, they'll always talk to you. Downstairs, I've got some copies of my book on sponsorship and my new book, my autobiography, which you might find interesting. It tells you a lot of the ways I went about finding money for motor racing, including working with the Monty Python team, John Cleese, and other ways. And I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed for being a very patient audience. I hope it's been helpful. And Tom, where's Tom? There we are. Pass back to you. Thank you.
I hope you found that interesting. I've known Brian for a little while, and he's helped me a lot personally with my sponsorship and Next Level as well in our philosophy. I'd highly recommend his book. He's doing a special price downstairs, aren't you?
Yeah. The sponsorship book's normally £25. It's £10 today.
Yeah, so the sponsorship book downstairs is normally £25, and he's offering it to £10 for £10 to all of you today. And I'd highly recommend reading it, because it does open your eyes a little bit more.
The autobiography is £12.50.
And the autobiography is £12.50, so feel free after this is done to go down and get your copies. So our next speaker is Enzo Mucci, and he's here to talk about changing drivers' approach to sponsorship. Enzo is here on behalf of his own company, but also iZone Driver Performance, that are a world-class performance centre here at Silverstone, and one I currently use to train for all my racing. They promote excellence in 6 areas: technical and tactical, physical, psychomotor, mental, lifestyle interpersonal, and the one we're here for to talk about commercial and business. So I'd like to invite Enzo to come up and chat.
Hello everybody, thanks for turning out on a Sunday, which is usually a race day, but it's good to see that so many people are passionate about the things that we're passionate about, which is obviously sponsorship, which is not very cool if you're a young kid. So I want to know first of all, who is here as a driver who's looking for sponsorship? Put your hands up please. How many people are we actually speaking to? Okay, and how many are in a situation where they're not racing next year if they don't find sponsorship? So that's really important. So I think that's about half. Yeah, I know you are. That's about half of you. So the thing is with sponsorship, it's got to be hit on very early on, is that we all know the strategies of how to get sponsorship. We could actually advise another driver if they asked us, how do you think we can help? If I could raise the funds to race, how would I do it? And you could write down a piece of paper, you just go to companies and you sell the benefits that motorsport offer as a whole to a company, and if it fits, after you've done your research, if it fits what they want, they might just buy it. You know already how to do this. But the thing I've found, and I did it with myself as well actually as a driver, the thing I've found is that it's getting yourself to do it. It's being the kind of person at a young age who can get sponsorship. Because you think to yourself, okay, that's great, but how is a 50-year-old CEO even going to listen to me when I'm 17 years old? And I haven't really got the skills to talk, and that stops you even taking action in the first place. So the thing we like to teach at iZone and myself, the biggest passion, is to talk to you as an entrepreneur. I think you need, which I'll go through in a moment, you need to have the skills as a person, as an individual, to be able to sell, to have the passion for your sport, and to be the kind of person who can pull this off. And that is another skill that is difficult to have naturally, especially at a young age. You're good at sticking the helmet on, that's when you become you. But what we find is most drivers, when that helmet comes off, you disappear, and we don't see you. And this is the biggest problem I find. So we could give you the best strategies, the best skills, but it's actually being the kind of person that actually do it, which comes down to confidence, it comes down to a whole bag full of qualities that you need if you're going to do this. And actually getting people, obviously, to join your mission as an individual. That's another really important thing. So if you haven't got the actual skills, you need to join with people who can help you sell, who can help you put together a proposal, which is obviously next level is what they do. I'm not here to sell to anybody, but it's having these kind of things as well. So don't think that you're on your own if you haven't got the skills at the moment. That's what I find most drivers don't even start, and entrepreneurs. They have this idea of a business, but they don't start because they've got their own personal challenges that they can't really get themselves to do it. So that's my bag, really. It's talking to the entrepreneur as a person and hopefully giving the skills that allow you to pull these strategies off that people are talking about. So, what I wanted just to cover today, because I was told we only got 5 or 10 minutes, but it sounds like we're taking a bit more, is to see the world a specific way, to create your matrix, I call it. Now, we've all seen the Matrix film, or many of us have, and that's a fictitious world that's built up on set rules, and then rules that people within that world live within. It's kind of like the human race. We've got these rules that are given to us as we're growing up, and we live within them, and we try and get our goals using these rules. It's our perspective of the way we see the world. This means that, that means this. Now, for a driver, if we expect a young driver, no matter what age you are actually, to go out into the business world and to sell themselves and do it correctly, we're a bit deluded. We've got to make sure that you're set up with the right outlook and the philosophy and the belief system that allows you to see the opportunities and offer things. Otherwise, you will fall for the trap, just like Brian said and Tom said, so it's a big thing about, I'm a race driver, do you fancy throwing me 20, 30, 50, 100 grand just for me to race? And I'll stick a stick on the car, oh, you can come to the race as well, it's great, blah, blah, blah. That's the way you'll approach it if you don't have the right outlook and you're not really an entrepreneur in the mind. So I think that's the thing we need to hit as well. So, to create a matrix, I've done 5 rules, there's usually 6, but I've given 5 today. And if you stick to these, it'll allow you to see the world or the motorsport world as it is, so then you can approach it the right way, which we've already hit on a lot of these things, which is great. So we're all saying the same thing. But first of all, I want to say it's first you, then it's the strategies. So we've got to take time to teach you how to be this entrepreneur I've just covered. And in the 1500s, Sir Francis Bacon said, "Scientia potentia est," which is knowledge is power, which we all agree. You've got to know something if you want to pull it off, which is the strategies. But actually, you've also got to know about yourself, because how many times have you known what to do, but you haven't managed to do it? Plenty of times. So this is where I really want to, what I've already just covered, is you saying to yourself, okay, I've got to make a cold call. What does that mean? That means I've got to have a script. I've got to have researched them as well, but then I've just got to do it. And the simple rules that you need to do or to have within yourself in order to do that. So the things are that I really want you to start to think about are getting yourself to take daily action. Now that top one, if you didn't know any strategies, and I know that you didn't know at the start, if you didn't know any strategies, but every single day you're calling somebody up, you're approaching somebody, you're asking some help from somebody, you're getting budgets from race teams, and you're constantly working on your craft on the business side, you'll figure it out. But the problem is, a lot of drivers don't even take the action. So this is what I mean when I say it's first you. You've got to get yourself to take the action, and then you just figure it out on the way. Richard Branson didn't know how to do what he did to set up Virgin. Elon Musk didn't know. They just fell into it because of taking the constant action. I can't hit that home hard enough. If you only used one element of sponsorship, say, all I'm going to sell is hospitality. That's all I'm going to do. But you bang on the phone selling hospitality and use the profit from that to pay for your racing, perfect. If you only sold advertising on other drivers' cars, you went to Tom Olithant and you said, you know what, I'm driving in Formula 4, who everything I have, 3,000 people at every race weekend, they've got social media of 500 people, I can't sell it. I'm sure he will let you sell space on his car, and that's thinking, okay, I've just got to make money out of motorsport and the profit from that. He'll give me 20% commission, I'm sure. If I sell the white space on his car, if it's applicable to the car and not clashing with any of the sponsors, I make money. And this is the sort of thing you could just find out on the way if you're taking action every day. So this is you again. Overcoming fear of cold calling is another big one that Brian touched upon. But actually, if you want to be a race driver, you can't be afraid of having a no. That's life. Obviously, there's plenty of dads in here that have had no's all their life and they still continue to. You cannot allow that to stop you. In fact, Andy Creo, who we work with at iZone, he said when he came over from Guernsey, he did a deal to get a caravan. He dusted up his old Volvo and said, I'm going to go to England to be an F1 driver. He left his fiancée at home and off he went, and he thought, where am I going to go? Silverstone. So he just drove up to Silverstone, chasing this career to be an F1 driver, and he hadn't even raced on a circuit at that point. And he was in his early 20s, he wasn't even young, so you wouldn't give him much chance. No money, no real history apart from hill climb, and he was going to go and chase F1. And when he got to Silverstone, just at this main gate, he didn't know where to stay, so he slept outside, and then eventually did a deal with a company that's just on the right-hand side, still there now, of Silverstone entrance, and he slept in their yard, in his caravan, and that's where he started his empire. And he said to me, and he became to become triple world champion, test driver for Williams, so he did pretty damn good with not a bean, no money, but he had a simple rule that gave him the biggest jump, and that was, I have to speak to 300 companies before I get one yes. And then that raised his standard of what he's expecting of himself. And that's a rule. And when I said creating a matrix of your own, of seeing the world a certain way, it's then kind of rules that make a difference. And I spoke to someone else who's getting sponsorship nowadays. He's raised 200 grand a year on his own. He's only in his early 20s actually. Tim Zimmerman, who does, a few of you know him, he does the Porsche Carrera Cup. all his own sponsorship because his dad said he can't pay for it anymore. And he's got 130 to 1 is his ratio. So it's interesting, these two people, one did it 20 years ago, one's doing it now, and they've got a similar rule. And he had to ask 130 people before he got the yes, the very first yes. And he keeps telling people this. And that's how long it took him to get his approach down. Because before he just go and ask for sponsorship, no, okay, I'll try a different way. I'll try and go now for the CEO and the PA of the CEO and ask this way. And eventually he got to the conclusion of, I'm going to go into a company, ask them what their problem is, because I've got these products that help them answer all these different problems, and just see if it works. But it took him a long time to do that. I suggest you guys do that as well. You don't go there just to promote, you listen to what they want if you can't do the research, and if it doesn't work, it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. But hey, that's another thing. So this is all based around, before I go off on one, it's all based around you being the kind of person who can do it. That has to come first. And you can train this in many different ways. There's a driver in here, there's two drivers in here, I think, that I've suggested go for a very small championship, because they can't afford a big one. That's the MX-5. To go towards a small championship and learn the skills of selling, learn the skills of promoting your own brand, getting race results, and build slowly, because that's a championship that only costs about 20 grand. So if you can pull that off, then you can do the groundwork that teaches you the entrepreneur skills that then when you step up, it's great. Because what I'm finding is a lot of drivers will aim for F4 as soon as they come out of karting, which is what, $250,000, and then fail. So then they're not racing. And then the next year, yeah, I think we can do it. We can probably get Formula 4, which is now 100 grand for the big championship, and then they fail at that. So another thing is train the skills that you need in order to sell sponsorship. That's all I'm saying. Okay, overcoming rejections, all the same. Creating motivation to do this and knowing what you are and what you aren't good at, so you can get a team of people to help you. Right, again, been covered. I think we've done all the same sort of speech, but this is business, not a sport. Now, when I worked with Eric Bollier, he was, I think it was Renault at the time, and we were at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and he said, all of this is a mirage. This is business disguised as a sport. And all the people that are in the hospitality unit are here for business. They don't actually care about the racing. They weren't even watching the racing. You could just see all these bigwigs in the hospitality area were just doing business within the actual circle of motorsport. Like there was a CEO of this company doing business with this one, and it was like a network party. And that really opened my eyes to think, hang on a minute, the sticker on the car, it's invisible, it's this big, yet they're paying 10 million for it. But actually it's not that they're after, it's the business. Or they're trying to do business with F1 or other teams. So straight away again, I was like, God, it's nothing to do with you going to a company and saying this. And there's plenty of people here who will own businesses and they'll look at motorsport and say, there's so many companies in motorsport, the amount of B2B opportunities are ridiculous. And as a driver, you've got the key. You've got the key to that world that's got all these businesses in here. And that is one big network party. Okay, and there's a Zamparelli, who's one of Brian's drivers, and he did well by selling lots of sponsorship on his car for a very small amount, of 500, 1,000 to get on this car, and he was building all across his bonnet, all these different companies. But what he found is actually that company there could be a plumber, can start to do business with this company here who's an electrician, and they can do business together, and they can do big jobs together. So this is the kind of thing it takes. But I would say if you're young, you need sort of like a business person to help you with this first. It could be dad, it could be someone else, it could be your uncle, it could be someone down the road. But this is the kind of level you've got to think of. It is business first, and then you get to race, which is the challenge. Because as you're a driver, you fall in love with a Hollywood storyline of I'm going to go into this sport and I'm going to be the star, which is great if it was football. Even that's not easy, but it's football, it's cheaper, and you get promoted as you win, but this sport isn't. You have to pay in order to be part of it. So we've got to really be honest, and it is business. Now, talking of business, these are people that knew that it was all business. Bernie Ecclestone is also a driver at one point. He turned into be the boss of F1, billionaire. Now, he couldn't go to bed at night if he hadn't done a deal in the day. Love him or hate him, I'm sure we've all heard of the stories behind him, but still it was that mindset of, okay, this is a second-hand car dealer who went on to be a race driver and actually to run F1, and he was the mafia, basically. He was the godfather. So he understood it. Muhammad Ali, he was quite a quiet kid, actually, and then he saw a wrestling match with Gorgeous George, and this was this big, blonde chap who would come down, walk into the arena, pushing loads of spectators everywhere, obnoxiously spraying perfume into the opponent's corner, and he would cause people to hate him, a bit like a Eubank. But it created a stir. People would turn up to watch him. He'd fill the seats out. Muhammad Ali saw this and thought, I've got to get in on this. Because if I can make myself loud for people to love me and hate me, cause a stir, which is a brand, cause a stir, people will show up, I'll sell out and I'll make money. And that's really how he created his career and his character. It wasn't what he was born with. So you've got to understand that all these people are very switched on. Arnold Schwarzenegger, another one you've heard of, that's some chap who was born in 1946 in a tiny town in Austria, not really having a chance to do anything, and then he had a spark of inspiration when he saw a bodybuilder go to Hollywood, and he thought, I want to live that. So he made himself big, as you know. He was a monster, and he won Mr. Olympia 7 times. And after that, cutting it very short, he became a movie star, a megastar, one of the biggest paid action stars, and then governor of California. Now that's the kind of person who started off as a sport, in a sport, just lifting weights. And they were paid about $7 grand or something for winning it back then. But believe it or not, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a millionaire before he was a bodybuilder. And he did that through construction. He did it through selling how-to guides of how to bodybuild, and he was doing all these things before he was Mr. Olympia. So it's business first, again. And this is what we've got again on. Venus Williams owns a clothing company. Maria Sharapova is Sugar Pova, which is candy. Magic Johnson, is basically building up the urban states in America, and George Foreman with the grills. Now these people are all business-minded, and that's how they stay around, because they provide value, not just in the ring or on the pitch or on the circuit, but overall. And this is the game we're playing. Everything you see out there on the track is not really what you're talking about. It's everything that gets you there. It's the fuel, which is the business. Okay, rule number 3 is you must be, I made up a word here, it's race entrepreneur, which is obviously what you do. Half race, half entrepreneur. And that's the way I want you to see yourself from now on. Not a race driver. You're only a race driver when you're playing on iRacing or something. Everything else is here. Right. Now, when Sir Frank Williams was asked what he thinks about Ayrton Senna, he said, my abiding memory of Ayrton Senna is not the world-class ability as a race driver, but as an intellectually unbeatable businessman. He was gifted with a propensity for extraordinary clear thinking and an outstanding ability to outguess, outthink, and outmaneuver his business opponent. Now, how many drivers do you think would you talk about like that? It's not many. You say, oh yeah, they're fast. They've got a good attitude. They've got a good work ethic. But actually, that's how Frank Williams remembers Senna, because he was tough in the business world. He was into all sorts, from mountain bikes to road bikes. So he knew, I have to be good at business. And Senna actually went to business college, believe it or not, for a little while. He ran the market stall back in Brazil. And this was building up his entrepreneur skills before racing. And people don't know this, just think he's quick. And it's easy to look outside there, but once you meet them, once you understand how they actually tick, they do the business, they get themselves into a platform where they can capitalize, and then they execute. All right, so really think about this. This is not just us saying things that are not valid. Now, creating value. To simplify it down, I want you to always think bills and dreams. Anyone who knows me knows I preach this to death. But basically, when you are going to somebody to provide value, they're either trying to pay their bills, or they're trying to reach or achieve some kind of dream. And all you need to do as a race driver is to help them do one of them two. To find out what's more important to them, and how can I help them put more cash in their pocket, or achieve a mission that they're on. That's really all it is, when you bring it down to very simple terms. So when you go to speak to a race team, usually bills is quite important. They want you to come in as a driver to pay their bills, which is fine, because that's the way they run. But they've also got dreams as well. They want to win, but firstly, they've got to pay the bills in order to win to get the dreams. So you need to know that when you're talking to them, to speak their language. And if you go into companies, if you go into even a manager, you want a manager to help you, and you can't actually help, you can't pay their retainer, you've got to understand, okay, what's their dream? What are they trying to achieve, and how can I help them achieve that? Okay, they need top drivers. I'm going to go and find them some drivers and they'll work for me for free. So you always got to understand, what are they trying to achieve? Are they trying to get cash in their pocket or achieve something? If it's cash in the pocket, you've really got to show them how you can do that. Right, number 4, sponsorship game. The sponsorship game is a little bit different nowadays in some ways. And when I say that, I mean from a company's perspective. Because nowadays, they have more on offer. They've got Facebook advertising. Now, if a company wants to get the word out about their product, they would prefer to spend £5,000 on an advert on Facebook, which targets everyone in a certain age bracket, people who are interested in their product because they've liked something at some point. Even if they've visited their website, if you put a Facebook ad up and you target that person, or only target people that have visited your website in the past, probably didn't take action, but they're the only ones that see it on their phone, and you can be anyone, any hair colour, interests, where they live, the whole lot. They can get very precise, and only then people see their advert. And that's probably £5,000, and they will make sales from it. And you're going there as a driver asking for £100,000 for a sticker on the car. How do you think it's going to play out? They're just not going to do it. So this is where things are a bit different. You've got to talk, you've got social media yourself to use, obviously, but you've got to talk their language and understand. The sticker on the car and the race tickets is really not going to work unless you've got someone pretty much giving you a donation. Social media, influencer marketing, again, is giving companies such an amazing value where they can go to somebody with about 200,000 followers and say, you know what, I'll give you some product if you just take a photo with my product. And they will make sales off that. And people like Wish.com, I think they spend 100% of their marketing at one point on Facebook, advertising, and the promotion through it, and they're huge. So you've got to understand that we're fighting against these people now, all these options. Or we can kind of use them within our sponsorship package and products to help combat this. And obviously we've got lots of board of directors now. The latest thing, the last 10 years, has been people getting investment for a company before the company actually exists, startup investment. And that means you've got board of directors to go through. So everybody has to agree. So it's another thing that's a slight challenge. We've talked about challenges before, but these are a couple more. Right, rule number 5, and you'll be glad to hear this, is that sponsorship isn't the only way to get in the car. I know plenty of drivers that have made it all the way to F1 and have never got sponsored, a dime of sponsorship in their life. So there are other options, which I just want to say. Sponsorship is obviously a huge one. I've got it as number 1, but I've also separated B2B. B2B is often part of a sponsorship package, but I want you to treat it differently as well. So you look at it differently and you prioritise it. But B2B is how I can give a company, basically generate business from this company to the people that I know. Or the potential of meeting. And I think it was Brian that said with FedEx, he promised to get them into the arena of F1. And it wasn't a promise of you actually going to pick up business, but actually we can set up meetings so you can be the logistics company for these type of people. And they're like, well, it's a no-brainer. Because not only are we going to get all the exposure, but actually the B2B, which is a bit longer term, is going to serve us. Right, number 3 is driver investment. Now, a lot of the time that's mommy and daddy, but we can, if you're in a championship, America's got this more than England at the minute, I'm afraid, but if you're in a championship that gives you prize money, and you've got something about you, and you're in a scholarship system, then people can invest in your career, just like they would a racehorse. And this is a different tack, different business proposal that you're going to offer people, a different kind of people, and you might know them. But they invest in you as an athlete, hoping that one day you'll have a return. I've got one driver who's in F3, Liam Lawson, who's 100% funded, or was before Red Bull picked him up, by number 3. And they just went around New Zealand and gathered up 7 different investors, putting in 100 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever, and they just liked to be part of it. And this was the older generation of CEOs that are actually just a bit bored. So that could work. That could work, because they think they're backing a horse, they're involved in something exciting, and actually their business partner put money in, like, go on, you put some money in as well. So actually, driver investment can be possible. If you can show them that there's a potential, remember, of some kind of return, or you can give them some kind of B2B. Donations, which obviously we covered, this is obviously parents again, people just giving money. If you're in a small championship, then donations is a little bit easier. Bigger championships, it doesn't really offer much. So I've got to think about all the different kinds of drivers. And a GoFundMe site is terrible, but if it gives you 500 quid and you're not going the sponsorship route, this could be, look at Billy Munger, and I think there's a supercar driver who repaired his car right by going through GoFundMe. So it's another option. It's not, like you said, it's not very good in terms of sponsorship. It gives it a bad name, but it's another option. Someone who just needs to buy a set of tyres, if you're doing something like that. Race team deal is when you go to a team and you make a deal with them. This is for the kind of driver who has speed, and to help the team earn money and pay their bills and actually achieve their dreams, you can promise that you'll be at the front of the grid, raise their profile, and then they can attract better drivers. That's the kind of team that's struggling a little bit and needs to get back at the front. They need to reinvest in the driver. So again, all of these options are not for everybody, but certain people can actually use these. The pro driver role, this is when you get a gentleman driver, and you're pretty much their driver coach, and they contribute towards your budget. It's another way for some people that have been around for a while, have a proven track record, who can go that way. Manufacturers, driver programs and scholarships. This is the Red Bulls, this is the actual Mercedes. Now, a lot of drivers are scared of manufacturers. But if you have proven something already, you'd be surprised just picking up the phone, asking for some kind of assistance to someone who runs a driver program or manufacturer can actually lead to something. There's plenty of drivers we know, and somehow they've got through the door to a manufacturer. How the hell did you do it? And when I asked them, I just picked up the phone and asked. Ocon did it with Toto Wolff when he'd done Formula Renault, but he wasn't a superstar. He said, I'm at the end, I've got nothing left, I need some help, is there anything you can do? And he just begged. And Ocon, by the way, is another driver who's back in F1 next year who lived in a caravan with his dad. So not everybody had money, but he had the work ethic, and what I said before, he was the kind of person that would knock on doors, get on with people, and he was fast. It's another thing you must be if you want to be a driver. And the Trojan horse, now this is for people, I did this and Andy did this actually, who have really got no money whatsoever, and this is when you work within the industry. And the Trojan horse is obviously the Greeks going in the Trojan War in the wooden horse and not being seen until they execute it. And that's what you need to do. If you really haven't got any money, you think, okay, where can I work within the industry that at least allows me to meet people, improve my sales skills, my presenting skills and all this. And you never know, I might need a sponsor. Jason Plato did it as well. Just here, Silverstone Race School. When you've got nothing else going, you might as well work in the industry because you never know who you're going to meet. That's all this is all about. And as I say, Andy did it, and both of them had no cash when they did it. So this is something, again, if you've got no cash, nothing to do, you haven't got school, or if you have got school, you can do it on the weekends. You can even work in the paddock club in F1. Again, you can hand your business card over now and then if you're a race driver coach, and it opens up doors. It's the long game, and a lot of this is long game. I can't see any of them on here that's going to give you sponsorship or money to race within the next week unless you're very lucky. All of it takes work. So you might have to reinvest, time-wise, a whole year of doing these things until you get somewhere. So you need patience. It's big. If you haven't got patience, you're going to give up. So not all of them work just like that. And that's it from my part, but at the end of the day, I just want to make sure that when these strategies are taught to you, that you actually do execute on them. Even if you're young, you've got to think, okay, this is what it can sell. I can see somebody walking around with their sponsor shirt here. Now, who walks around with their race gear on? Yourself. Hardly anybody. And this is thinking outside the box. He's going to go somewhere if he carries on boasting the sponsors' names because he gets people asking. You've got to be out there. You've got to be the kind of person that can be at the forefront. And if not, you team up with somebody who can help you walk the talk and deliver what you can to companies. So it's all about the person, the individual. I want you to be a race entrepreneur first, who happens to be racing and is fast on track. It's another side that you have to train, obviously. Okay? That's all I've got for now.
Cheers, Enzo. Brilliant. So I'm going to swap the presentation order around a little bit, and I'm going to welcome Bruce Rennie to the stage. Obviously, Bruce is the managing marketing director for Rocket, and he's going to talk about his experience across the last year or so. With Williams Formula One team and many more. It's on that screen. Brilliant.
Many thanks, Tom. Hopefully you can all hear me at the back. Great. Tom reached out to me recently via Gwyn to invite me along to this, what I must say is a brilliant afternoon of health and education support. Because we, as title sponsors of Formula One team, have an insight into, obviously, our perspective of drivers and the whole business of sponsorship. Specifically, they wanted me to talk about Rocket's approach to sponsorship. Why do we sponsor Motorsport? Why Williams? Why are drivers such an important part of the sponsorship play? And also they asked me to give any other advice which I think may be of use. So here we go. I'm not terribly technical. Are you enjoying it? There we go. That's all. Come on. Before I crack on, I should explain, because it will help you understand. Rocket actually comprises 3 companies, all under the same Rocket brand, in the same way that Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Records, Virgin Trains, etc. We have currently 3 very different companies under the same brand. We have Rocket Phones, one of which was won earlier. We have Rocket Cities, and we have Rocket Drinks, one of my personal favorites. Rocket Phones, just to give you an understanding, are high-end Android phones with a unique 3D screen, but a fraction of the cost of branded phones such as Samsung or iPhones. So the USP there is 3D screens and very low cost. Rocket Cities is a massive play where we're rolling out Wi-Fi through Wi-Fi mesh tech across currently India, which you can imagine the scale of that, and that will be followed by further countries around the world as we go on. The idea there being to give accessibility to the internet to people who are currently excluded on the basis of poverty. Then we have Rocket Drinks. We own a 700-year-old brewery in Germany, plus a distillery in California. But they all share the same branding. So what is our approach to sponsorship? Well, obviously sponsorship is part of the overall marketing mix for the promotion of any company. It is to drive brand awareness, to drive product understanding and sales, but principally to our customers. Our customers are businesses and governments, not necessarily consumers. To provide, as was covered earlier, to provide VIP hospitality for our customers and our guests is terribly important. And to a large extent, cars racing around a track is one thing, but the business that gets done in the paddock is what is really interesting. But whatever sport property we sponsor, it must reflect positively on the brand. I know that's an obvious point, but it's one that's worth making. So in addition to F1, the lovely Nick, we sponsored him in touring car. In this case for Rocket Drinks. Again for Rocket Drinks in the European Rally Championship. Over in the States, because obviously this is a global play, we sponsor the Houston Rockets, the Rockets, which is quite fun in the NBA. And we are the field sponsor for the LA Chargers in the NFL. We also sponsor 5 tennis players, including Jo Konta, the British women's #1. And announced only on Thursday of this week, so 3 days ago, we are the long-term title sponsor for the Rocket Venturi racing team in Formula E. In this case, the remote Rocket Cities. So Williams F1 is run by Claire Williams, and Rocket Venturi Racing Formula E is run by Susie Wolf. So we're starting to see a pattern here. And we sponsor the World Senior Snooker Tour, principally because my chairman is a snooker fan. So why motorsport in particular? Well, the obvious things. It is glamorous. It's high tech. It's exciting. And these are all attributes that we want our brands and companies to be associated with. We have the opportunity to engage with the fan bases in each sport, particularly the fans of the individual teams within each sport. Particularly with motorsport, the opportunities for hospitality to entertain and meet and greet our partners and our customers exist in a very glamorous, high-tech, exciting, fun environment. Obviously, the media coverage, vital. TV audience, vital. Eyeballs are good. Eyeballs are always good. And motorsports attracts eyeballs. So why Williams? Well, as I'm sure many of you here will know, Williams were the powerhouse in Formula 1 for many, many years. But the last couple of years or so, languishing at the bottom of the grid. A dormant giant, a wounded giant. So why would we invest so heavily into a team that's bottom of the grid? Well, the only way is up. But it's more than that. The heritage of Williams is extraordinary. 9 Constructors' Championships, 7 Drivers' World Championships, 114 Grand Prix wins, 310 podium places. Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill, Ayrton Senna, Nelson Piquet, Jenson Button, to name but a few. We firmly believe, and we're prepared and are putting our money where our mouths are, we firmly believe we can return to that sort of performance within the next 3 to 4 years. So we announced our sponsorship of Williams in February on a 3-year deal as title sponsor. Come July of this year, we extended that to 5 years, and 2 months ago, we doubled our investment per annum. We're showing commitment. What that gives Williams, having a major title sponsor long term, is it gives them the cornerstone upon which to rebuild. in order to return to challenge for podium. So why are the drivers such a vital part of our sponsorship in motorsport? Well, put simply, drivers can humanize the brand. We don't wish to be a corporate. We wish to be a human brand with human faces, whether it be rocket drinks, cities, or phones. So here we see George and Robert using our phones. We see Nick doing the same thing there. These things matter to our drivers. It matters to the fans. The guys become brand ambassadors. Without doubt, drivers are critical in our marketing overall. Here we see Robert endorsing our beer, our award-winning German beer, which in this particular photograph, we were able to push sales into Poland for the first time on a grand scale. Robert, of course, is a superstar in Poland, but it's not always easy to find a German beer in Poland because of certain historical anomalies. But using our drivers to humanize a brand gives us very clear opportunities to help sales, drive sales, push sales. It's very important that drivers get on board with that. We like to see our drivers host my guests. This is terribly important. Here we see George, I think that was in Baku, with some of my invited guests. These are people I do business with. And there's George taking time out at the race weekend to show them around his car, meet his guys. It goes a long way. And then, of course, because we sponsor various sports and teams, we can integrate that sponsorship to massive effect. So here we have Joe Conter, the tennis player, meeting George for the first time right here at Silverstone during the British Grand Prix. It was a great day. So, lastly, any further advice I was asked that I could offer to young drivers? Well, already the speakers have covered some of this in tremendous detail. But across all sports, you must understand, you young drivers, that the demand for sponsorship money, your demand for sponsorship money, far exceeds the money available. There will be winners, there will be losers. Some people will get a fraction of what they expect or hope for. Some people will get zero. And while it certainly helps, success on the track alone is no guarantee. It just isn't. There's much more to it than that. Sponsorship, as any team owner will know, has to be worked for. It has to be targeted. And once secured, they'll do anything to retain it. So drivers must understand why sponsors invest. And it is an investment. It isn't an indulgence, it's an investment. They must try and understand what our expectations are in return for that investment. Drivers must have at least a grasp of the business you're in. By that I mean you should be able to trot out stats, whatever class or formula you're driving in, of audience reach, growth, value. You should have this off the top of your head, and if you don't have it, find out. Google's amazing. Not always accurate. When you're at a race weekend and your sponsor's there, make time for them. Terribly important. Make time, show interest. Have your selfie taken with the sponsor's wife. They love all that. Sign anything. Sign whatever, just make time. It's important to us and important to our guests. Be polite. Be grateful. Be confident, but do try and avoid arrogance. Well, that'll come and bite you. No matter what business your sponsor's in, do at least feign an interest. It's very important. And be enthusiastic about your sponsor and their business. Become that brand ambassador. It matters such a lot, particularly when it comes to sponsorship contract renewals. In summary, be like George. That's it.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I think there's a lot of very good points for drivers out there in terms of how to approach it, and speaking from a current major motorsport sponsor, this is what they're after, and this is what other sponsors will be after as well. So I thought that was a very, very useful insight. Yeah, move on. So Sports Alive quickly are a world-leading provider of big prize promotions and insurance. Product examples, contractual bonuses, event insurance, half-time promotions, lottery insurance, conditional rebate, and hole-in-one insurance. So they do a whole host of things, and Pete will come on stage to chat a little bit more.
I'm going to bore you to tears with insurance now. Right, Sports Alive have been in business now for about 20 years. Are you covered? As Tom said, we do various different types of unique insurance and contractual bonuses, lottery insurance, hole-in-one insurance, and various different things linked to sport. One of the things that we have been doing over the years is a thing, basically contractual bonus insurance or performance bonus cover, which some people may be aware of, other people may not. The easiest way to explain contractual bonus insurance is probably outside of motorsport. It's something along the lines of in golf. We look after a golfer, and one of their sponsors came to us because they sponsored this individual and wanted to give him bonuses or reward him for back of good performances from the golfer. They get more PR, more coverage, more people talking about it on social media, more pictures, etc., etc. Therefore, how could they reward that person? Well, obviously, they need to pay them for that success. Which is simply enough for the person who signed the contract, but the financial directors of that company don't know what their outlay is at the beginning of the season. So they would have to either call money back or guess as to what that sponsorship would cost them if they're paying out performances, especially that golfer does extremely well. So in order to be able to level out that right at the beginning of the season, for a sponsor to know exactly what their outlay is in terms of that sponsorship, they can take that package of insurance to cover against those performance bonus payouts. That's a really simple concept in terms of they pay one fee, and regardless of how successful that individual is during the season, they the payments are looked after by people like ourselves. So the sponsors happy in terms of the fact that they know exactly what their outlay is, and the athlete or individual sports person, driver, is content if they back themselves. They know that they're going to be paid out performance bonuses during the season. It's not completely new to motorsport, but it's not used massively in motorsport. I know a couple of occasions when it's been used. I know a certain touring car team that used it either last year or the year before. They had a sponsor involved, and they said they pay the bonuses. However, what they said, because they needed to know what their outlay was at the beginning of the season, will cap it. Well, within about 6 races of the season, that cap it, met that cap, and there were no more bonuses throughout the season. Whereas had they taken out a small policy, those performance bonuses need to be paid out for that team. It was used a few years ago as well in the Irish F1 team when Orange came on board. The deal was negotiated that Orange would pay, if they got a podium, if Irish got a podium, they get £250,000. And again, that was insured, so that again, the CEO of Orange knew exactly what his outlay was at the beginning of the season. Another way of using it, to make it more attractive to sponsors, is one of the golfers that we do look after. What he does, he actually gives a portion of his bonuses back to the sponsor. So again, it's back. He's backed by the sponsor, and if he performs during the season, every time he gets performance payments paid out, he pays half of that back to his sponsor. So the attraction there to the sponsor is the fact that that sponsor can actually get his sponsorship back for nothing, and he can end up at the end of the season, if he has a particularly good season, basically that sponsorship costs them nothing because they get paid back in performance bonuses, and that could come across obviously in motorsport as well. So going through that, I think that's really covered most of this stuff on performance bonus and constant time, so I'm rattling through. But yeah, so it's a really simple concept. Basically, right at the beginning of the season, we work out what the risk is in terms of covering that risk, and once more fee, and the bonuses are paid out throughout the season. Another way that we can help in terms of in motorsport or any other avenues, again, as a couple of speakers already said, sponsors are wanting brand awareness and exposure. And a great way to do this is to run online and offline competitions as part of the deal that you're going to do with the sponsors. So basically, you can do a big prize promotion, and it can be an insured prize. It doesn't have to be an insured prize, but it can be an insured prize. So we did one with Tom before Brands Hatch. Really straightforward promotion on his social media, whereby people had to predict his qualifying time and what place on the grid he'd qualify. And that went on social media. I think we walked it about 48, 72 hours, and it increased the reach by 30 times, was it? So again, for us as a sponsor, because we're named on there, it's not our business, but even if we weren't involved in that business, the fact that we got that reach, and not only that reach, but an extended reach, was really of interest to us, and would be of interest to sponsors. So with an insured prize, so something like lap times or qualifying position, or where the first 5 people might finish at the end of the race, it's just a good way to do it. A really high value prize for a very little amount of money, because you insure it, because the odds of actually getting something quite as detailed as that correct are quite large. So for a very small investment, you can get a massive reach, because at the end of the day, when big prizes are on offer, it creates interest, and it extends the reach beyond that normal reach of the social media, in terms of much wider. People might not have been following that person in the first place, but using social media, it reaches beyond that. So it's just a very quick input in terms of insured promotions. It's just another idea, another way of getting sponsors involved, and some interest from sponsors, and getting their reach out there. At the end of the day, sponsors, big prizes are of interest to people, and it does give increased reach.
Thank you very much. I'll be billing you for the mouse. So the reason why I feel this is a really important thing coming into motorsport, and why I'm working with Sports Alive and Peak, is because a lot of drivers are in a similar position to me, where the next year or two we sort of do or die. You gain the success, you gain the exposure, and your career will kick on off the back of that. At that moment, you have to back your success. You have to put 110% effort in. And my argument is you might as well be rewarded for that success. It's an attractive proposition for sponsors to offer something more without offering too much more expense for them. But it can also work the other way in terms of drivers taking out a policy themselves to back their own success. It might be the chance you have of moving up the ladder the next year if you have a particularly successful year. On the terms of the prizes and promotions, these are a fantastic thing to increase eyeballs and exposure for your sponsors. And at the end, there's a prize from Sports Alive for one of you to do just that. So we'll move on. And I would like to introduce Nick Parkin. Nick Parkin is a part of Richardson Racing, who are here and have co-hosted this event with us. And he's going to talk about why he invests in motorsport. And very quickly, I just wanted to run through Richardson Racing. Well, no, you can come and stand here proudly. So Richardson Racing are a British race team competing in Ginetta Junior, Ginetta GT5 and F4 currently. However, there may be stuff on the horizon, an expansion. focusing on supporting their drivers both on track and off track with personal development and commercial development. So I'll pass over to Nick.
Thanks, Tom. If you'd like to know, I'm only going to be 5 minutes because it's getting a bit cold in here or something. Anyway, the reason Tom wanted me to have a chat was why I invested in Richardson Racing back in 2016, just as we went into Brexit, and talk a little bit about the team as well. So hopefully this works. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Richardson Racing first of all. Can you hear me at the back? Yes. Okay. So Richardson Racing been going for 12 years, and it's probably a really kind of family commitment because that's why it's called Richardson Racing. The mum and dad, and where's Leslie? Leslie? They've all disappeared. They've all gone downstairs for a drink. This is marvellous, isn't it? But Leslie and Green started the business 12 years ago to look after their son and their daughter. Andy's at the back now as our operations director. Wave, Andy. Okay. But that was real commitment that they actually started a team to run the two children, both in karting and then in Ginetta, both Ginetta Junior, Supercar, and then in F4. And then once the children had decided that was enough to carry on. Right? We've done incredibly well in 2019, both in, as before, in Ginetta Junior, Ginetta GT5, F4, and some of our drivers are here today, and I'd just like them to kind of stand up and wave at you so you can go and talk to them in a minute. Will, look, they're all going to stand up at the same time. Look at this. So I did ask you could have done it one at a time here, boys, but I thought I'd sit down and I'll explain. Casper here is in his first year, rookie year of Ginetta Junior, but now goes into F4 and very luckily won the F4 scholarship this year. Will, go on, stand up here, Will. Done his second year in Ginetta Junior, had loads of podiums, loads of wins, and where's Tom? Tom's there. The announcement is we now go into Porsche Carrera Cup, and we'll be going to Porsche Carrera Cup next year. Okay. Josh, wave Josh. Josh is our GT5 driver. Had a very successful GT5 round this year. More rounds, more wins, more podiums. And we'll continue hopefully with GT5 next year. And then Luke, who's probably been with us the longest because Luke spent 2 years in Ginetta Junior, and it's very interesting. He's learned his racecraft in Ginetta Junior. This has been his rookie year in F4, and at Brands, not actually racing F4 before, stuck in where was it, about 10th or 11th time?
Yeah, shocking qualifying.
Shocking qualifying, and I was with his mum, standing by his mum, and his mum said to me, it was raining and everything else, and we said, where do you think he's going to be before the first lap's out? And they said, Grand Prix circuit, it's a short circuit, the circuit. And I said, hopefully by Druids he might be up to maybe 6th. By Druids he was up to 3rd, and by the end of the lap he was 1st. Went off a few times, but then won his inaugural round. So hopefully, and he's done quite well this year, and hopefully he's actually going to prove that he can actually win F4 this year. Okay. Right. So why I bought into Richardson? I am a frustrated racing driver. I raced in Formula Atlantic 40 years ago. Unfortunately, this is not my best circuit. I had a crash here in 1976 and put myself in Northampton General Hospital for 6 months. But I don't hold that against Silverstone. But I was very lucky back then that my parents supported me for 5 years in motor racing before I had the accident. And it's quite interesting what Brian said. Back in those days, people were throwing money at you. So in 1975, I raced in Formula 3, Brands Hatch, early in the year. We had a queue of sponsors trying to write me checks. Okay? And one of them, Beverly, which is an American oil company, wrote me a check out at the time for £20,000 with half an hour's conversation. That today is worth about £120,000. So in those days, there was a lot of sponsorship around. But today is very different, as you've heard. I'd say for every £1 of sponsorship out there, there's probably 10 people going for that £1. It is very different, okay? But in 2015, I'm very lucky. Brian talked about running an SME. I've run a very successful IT SME. Lots of money. I decided 2015, I thought I'd try to put some money back into motorsport. But with a difference, and we'll come on to that difference in a second. So I talked to a lot of people. I've been interested in motorsport over that 40 years, and a number of people gave me 3 names to go talk to, three companies to talk to. I went to talk to them. Richardson was the last one. The other 2 will remain nameless, but they all really wanted me to put an investment in, but not into the company, but into their shareholders of that company, so they could take some money out. Richardson was the only one of those 3 that said, yeah, we want some money, but put it into the team. Let's put the money into the team to grow the team. And really that's the ethos that I had at the time, which was we need to put some money in because we want to grow the team. Okay? It's a family team. And the other thing, of course, it had a track record. So that's what we did. We put quite a lot of investment in back in 2015. Okay, oops, lady. Okay, that's right, that's right. So what have we basically done? We moved back in 2016 into 5,000 square feet of workshop near Rockingham. We built a state-of-the-art simulator, okay, which we try to encourage everybody that comes through into that simulator and spend time in the sim before we stick them either into a Ginetta Junior or into an F4. Spend a lot of time with coaches going through how you actually race. The other thing is we also pioneered, I suppose, making sure that everybody, all the drivers, were really up to scratch in terms of performance, either psychological performance or physical performance. And we work with a company called Training Shed, where we try to get all the drivers fitter, and it's proved beneficial to some of the drivers here that they weren't as fit as they should have been at the start of the season, but certainly are now. And then, of course, our work with Next Level in terms of, you know, the drivers have come to us with sponsorship, but they need more sponsorship. So we've worked with Next Level, with Tom and Chris, to try to provide that kind of how to get that sponsorship. And that's an ongoing process that we are helping to fund with our drivers. So that's what we're doing. I'm just going to put something quite funny up, because back in 1976, it wasn't quite like that. I spent a lot of time at Brands Hatch at the John Player Grand Prix in '76. I was invited by McLaren to come along. James Hunt had just signed with them, and they were sponsored by both Marlboro and Texaco. And this is what it was back like that when you were put in front of a television screen. This was James at the end of qualifying. Barry Walker was interviewing, and he turned up absolutely stoned out of his brains, okay, constantly chain smoking Marlboro cigarettes right away through the interview. And have you noticed what would you call it? The tankard, which was constantly being filled with lager. Okay? I don't suggest any of you do that today. It's much more professional. Back then, this is how it used to be. Okay. So going forward from here, one thing that we have decided to do is come up with a driver academy for F4. So this will be putting lots more drivers through the academy. This is putting drivers through that simulation, putting drivers out in an F4 before they go into F4 racing. And that academy will actually also sponsor some of our F4 drivers. So we will be holding shootouts during next year, and we will be putting money into those F4 drivers. We will continue with Ginecta Junior and GT5 because we think the Junior for people that maybe come from karting, going straight into F4 as we talked about, maybe not the best route because we've seen some youngsters come straight from karting straight into F4 and they've not done that very well. But spending a couple of years in Ginecta Junior learning your racecraft is probably the better way to do it. For the more experienced users or drivers, we will put them into GT5 and then we have Porsche Super Cup, and this will be the first year we're going for Super Cup because this actually then gives our drivers somewhere to go to. If they've gone into Ginecta Junior and they don't want to go into F4, they can go up the Super Cup route or even into GT4. We are going to continue with Next Level in terms of commercial development because I think all of our drivers actually need to actually have that level in terms of Facebook or the social media. Back in my time there was no social media, you wrote letters. Today it's social media. So we need a professional set of people to help our drivers out there. Okay. But it's not all about the drivers. Without the mechanics and engineers, we wouldn't have a race team. So we bring a lot of apprentices in, train them, spend 2 or 3 years with us. Let some of them stay, some of them go. Some of them have moved into F3, some of them have moved up to F1. So again, we're putting not only time and money into the drivers, but we're putting time and money into our mechanics and engineers. Okay. But it's not just you that needs sponsorship, we need sponsorship as well. So if there are already budding entrepreneurs in the audience that have got big pots of cash, come and see me, I'd love to take it off of you. The reason we want sponsorship, very simply, is we want to increase the size of our academy. So we want to take more drivers through, because at the moment we have a limited number that we can put through. But as you can see, there's lots of you in this room that want to get into the higher levels of motorsport, but we can help you do that if we can run a bigger academy. As we did before, back in 1996, we moved into 5,000 square feet of lovely workshop by Rockingham. We are now a health and safety hazard to ourselves. We've run out of space. We're just about to move into 11,000 square feet. I put my head down, but Andy's reminding me it's 11,000 square feet of office near Rockingham, where we have much more better facilities. We will build a bigger sim. We will also build training facilities as well up there. The other thing that we're going to do for next year is we will start to provide sponsorship for the drivers. We've kind of done that part way through the last two or 3 years, but for the exceptional drivers that come through, we will provide sponsorship from the team. Really quite unusual. Okay? We will start sponsoring some of these drivers. And sorry for the pun. And it's really to take us to the next level. So we're going to use next level to take us to the next level. Because basically, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. At the end of the day, we're not sure where we're going. We would like to go to F3 probably in a couple of years' time, but there is other opportunities for us to go to GT4 and GT3. So we're not staying here. We're going to move on. Thank you.
I think there's a couple of very interesting points there. The first one is obviously when Nick decides to invest in a race team. He ended up investing in a race team but met his needs, and he had some very specific needs that he wants to get across. And that's what is really important to all of you out there, is to understand the person you're sitting across the room from and understanding exactly what they want to get out of it, because if you sell them something that's just even slightly wrong, they'll go somewhere else. The second thing is to try and highlight that there are race teams and companies out there in the motorsport industry that are thinking a little bit differently and are trying to support their drivers in helping them achieve our ambitions, and in return, obviously, providing the business benefits and opportunities back to the race team and their sponsors. So it's important that you're aware of that. Some do it better than others, and it's just another option for maybe you raising a little bit of your budget. So I'd like to finally move on to our final speaker, George Rourke, who is who runs a company called Bisma, and they were the title sponsorship of the Formula Palmer Audi back when Matt ran, and he's just going to talk in a little bit more detail about his experiences.
So I'm all that's standing between you and the refreshments. First of all, who's heard of Bisma? Bisma is a 6.5 billion euro company based out of Scandinavia. Now, if you haven't heard of them here, gives you an example that you can be the biggest company in the world, but you have different markets, you concentrate on different markets, right? So what I was saying really is, can I mix passion and business? And there are two phrases down the bottom there. One of them was, discovery consists of seeing what everybody has seen and thinking what nobody has thought. I.e. approaching things from a different prospect. And the other one says, if you want to end up with a small fortune from motorsport, start with a larger one. And that's Eddie Jordan. And that's guaranteed the only thing you'll ever hear me as a quote from Eddie Jordan. Is it the space bar?
Yeah, well,
well,
takes them.
Right. If you look at this lot, those were some of my cars that I had, and I cry every time I look at the slides. I think, why on earth didn't I keep them? Right. Especially we talked about John Player specials. That was one of the original 100 John Player specials, and as you can see, I was quite a Lotus fan. Lotus standing for lots of trouble, usually serious in those days. But it was obvious that I would end up doing something in motorsport. I'd flown fast jets in the RAF. A flock of birds unfortunately put an end to that career, but I thought, well, I've got to be able to drive cars quickly. So I did a little bit of dabbling, and I found out, yes, I could drive cars quickly, but I could either drive quickly or I could watch what was going on around me, but not both. So I thought, my short career in motorsport didn't last very long, but I had this thing about motorsport. In 1998, in fact, I'll come back to this one later, but that was my first foray, if you like, into sponsorship with trying to get a brand known. But when I looked at sponsorship, why did I pick Formula Palmer Audi? I was unfortunate when I was at the Autosport show in January 1998. I ran into the world's best salesman, which was Jonathan Palmer, who said, George, because we've met once before, he said, arm around the shoulder, I'm just starting this new formula, and you really need to be involved in it. So, because I'd made the mistake of telling him that I was trying to break Bisma in the UK. Why was it important to me? And I'm reversing now what you have to go through. Because I was working at the time, I'd running the IT consulting division for a large accountancy group in the Midlands. And our target was owner-managed businesses. Now, I didn't know anything about other sports, but what I did know is about motorsport is that a lot of drivers in series in motorsport had dads who had their own business. So I thought, if I can get at some of them, each one of them has probably got to have 60 to 80,000 disposable income in order to support their offsprings through this route. So I was looking at it at yeah, I love motorsport, but is there a business case for this? And what can I look at? What will it cost me? And so on. So each driver would typically have a father with their own business. They would have disposable income. But each one of those was a potential customer for my IT consultancy services. Because as been said by all the speakers, whether you're a sponsor or a driver, this is a business thing. The vehicle that you drive round is literally that. It is a vehicle for generating business. The fact that it happens to be a car or a horse or whatever is irrelevant. But if you are looking to people to help support you, it does help if they have a strong interest in your chosen sport, which is motorsport. So it had to be a professional series. Don't waste your time. If you seriously want a career in motorsport, don't waste your time getting involved in meaningless championships. You are wasting money. When you pitch to your sponsors, you have to be able to offer them a package. And that package is, as we say, brand awareness. Yes, it sounds, that's the first thing we all think of, but it's not that. It's how do I help those people sell more? If they sell more, I'm free as a driver. I don't cost them anything. I'm just a salesman, but I can sell all over the place. So TV coverage, client hospitality, that is really important. But usually when you're in a series, you get a package, you can have so many hospitality tickets. That's where, and that's what Rocket do. That's where the business is done. You talk to the other dads, the other ones who've got their business. So the research that's been referred to time and time again, you have to do that research. When you go to, when you select the companies, find out about that company. Find out whether they're a B2B company or a B2C company, business to consumer. And there aren't that many of those. There are some. Who can name me a really good example of that at the moment? Who is a B2C? Who is a good sponsor in motorsport, but their ultimate market is the actual consumer? Who? Yeah. Another one on a lower level? Think Porsche Carrera Cup. Sacred. What does Sacred do? They sell coffee. In times of, and I have two customers in the moment in these industries, times like this when things are a bit uncertain, which companies do you think are the most successful? The comfort companies, the crisp manufacturers, the pasty manufacturers, the coffee companies. They are the ones that, and I've got to say this, and I'm not being sexist when I say this, some of the beauty companies. Because whilst things will get tight for one side of the family, there are other people saying, I am not going without going to this or that salon or whatever. Comfort companies, when it's uncertain times, have good targets. So we talked about it has to be a serious championship, otherwise you're wasting your money. Because you need the building blocks of the TV coverage, the client hospitality to offer to your sponsor. So in terms of why did I go down this route, it was sold to me by JP as being the best route, and it was certainly the best value route that I could see. What was it like working with JP? Does anybody know it? Right, you'll know Jonathan. He is one of those ridiculously qualified people. He's a qualified doctor. He's a Formula 1 driver. I think he was a Formula 2 European champion. He owns nearly all circuits now in the UK, didn't he? He didn't at the time. But the one thing that he promised me and the one thing that he gave me is he delivered on his promises. So me as a sponsor, I went into my first season. When you are pitching for sponsorship the other way, you're not looking at a one-year deal. You're not going to win a championship in year one. So it's got to be long-term. I ended up staying there for 11 years. I was there at the first race when the late Justin Wilson won at Alton Park, and I dropped the flag for the last race in here in about 2011. Notice one of the things, I'm trying to get brand awareness. What can you see on just above my logo? What can you see on Jonathan's sleeve? My logo, right? So, humble beginnings. This is how it all started. A little bit rough and ready. I was totally naive in this business. And as I said at the start, I was looking at, I was running the IT consulting division for a accountancy firm. By the way, don't bother trying to pitch to accountants. They have zero imagination. So we have 2 stickers. We were doing really well. We had 2 stickers on the front, and we had a little stripe on the back cowling. So, year 2. A little better. Richard Tarling, any of you involved in historic racing will see that Richard is still around, and he's one of the best historic Formula 4 drivers there's ever been, just about. But this was 99, so I'm getting more exposure. Now, Virgin Money came along, they got the rest of the car for about half of what I was paying for the top. One learns as one goes through this championship. Where did we go ultimately? The real thing. Just happened, my logo suited that car. When JP designed the cars, and they were all Van Diemen cars, he designed them to look like a mini Formula 1 car because he realized it's a vehicle for making money. People didn't want something with little flimsy wheels and so on. They wanted something proper. Now that car nearly cost me my marriage. Right? So there I am. Oh, I've got to tell you, I've got time for this little story. There I am. I promised my wife a romantic weekend in Paris. Friday night, 6 o'clock. We got the taxi, the top of the Champs-Élysées. No motorsport, no talk of cars this weekend. We set off down the Champs-Élysées, the phone rang. And she looked at me and I said, oh, I better take it to Jonathan Palmer. So the look came, you can imagine. So she went off to look in a shop on the side. JP, totally not bothered at all about the fact I'd already said to him, I'm going to be away for the weekend, George. I have got the deal for you. I've got a guy, he's got nearly all his budget, just when he's a little bit, you can have the whole of the car. What do you think? I'm in. Then I had to hide it from my wife for the rest of the weekend. But what happened then is I'd achieved what I wanted. I spent less than I did on the getting the cowling done, but I now had my car, and I now actually used that to send to Norway. Before that, their idea of marketing was a brochure. Right? They had no idea about sponsorship at all, but they liked what was happening. So I got some, and again, you on Brian's book, you don't have to be champion to be a winner. Sasha never finished higher than fifth at all in any of our races. But it meant I could take my customers to the meetings in the hospitality and they could network with other people, other businesses. And I've got to be honest, I made more out of the series over the time I was involved than I invested. So for me, it worked because we went from that to the whole series. And you can see on the front of each car my name, Visma's name, right? So it was branding, but it was getting the name out there. Now you can't really see, but if you look across the rest of the cars, I'm on the front of every one, and then the rest of them, if you look at these sponsors, you were able to see them in close-up, you'd see they're nearly all B2B. So your target has got to be B2B. But it's do the research, find the companies, work out what they really need, what their markets are, and then personalise the pitch to them. Don't try shotgun everything because it won't work. You have to personalise. If you send a letter, personalise it. If you send an email, find out first, do the research. Who is the right guy? The most important thing we talk about is who is the right guy. Forget the accountant, as I reminded you. But it's there, and even in tight times, sponsorship is there because people have to sell. Now Brexit is a problem, but I have a software business and it's Scandinavian based. I see dozens of Scandinavian companies buying into UK companies because they understand that if we come out of Europe, they've then got a vehicle that they can reach the rest of the world through, because at the moment, although they're not part of the EU, they are tied in under various agreements. So it's not all doom and gloom, whichever way we go. And as previous speaker said, I hate technology. Right. As the previous speaker said, whatever happens, there will be loads of money thrown at the next couple of years when we change governments.
Was that meant to happen?
No, no. Wait, nothing. There we go. Anyway, at the end of it, this is my last slide, but really it sums it up for me in that if I look at some of the people on there that I was lucky enough to meet, you recognise the logos on the tag one. That's Carrie Mojay, Mansour's brother. We've got guys who, Jonathan Kennard. Now that's an interesting one. Jonathan Kennard, he's now a car salesman. Have you seen his website? He sells LMP1. We got him some sponsorship, and what happened is that the company ran a competition internally to brand the car and to select the actual colour scheme for the car. So he went to the company and selected, the winner that they wanted, and the winners were invited to races and things. The whole company got involved. And although I stopped in 2011 of sponsoring, because all this time, whilst I was representing Visma, it was my money that was going in, not theirs. Because as I said, Visma's idea was sponsorship was, marketing was a brochure. Now, any of you are into pro cycling? Anybody watch the Tour de France? Right? Team Jumbo Visma, one of the most successful of the cycling teams. The Visma Classic Skiing Series, the Jumbo Visma Speed Skating. So they love the idea of sponsorship, but what they're doing is what any sponsor would do. They're picking their target market. They want to go into Benelux in a big way. Cycling is massive in Benelux. They're going cycling. So I was lucky. It worked for me. Hopefully, it's given you some ideas of how to target people. Don't waste your ones with it. Don't waste your time with series that don't matter, don't count. It's your career. It's a multi-year deal that you're looking for, and do that research into your target markets. Okay? Thank you very much.
You
you are many years already in the BTCC, and I've been last year. I've been visiting BTCC and I've been visiting your garage as well, and I've seen you. You always was around people. You always been talking to them about your team, about your services. How long it took you to become, I would say, professional in finding sponsorship?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in it. I think I've had some great feedback from my sponsors and the companies I've spoken to, and I've got a long list of contacts now with companies across the world, and that's just through hard work and dedication, really. I love this side of it. I love the business side. I've got 2 degrees from Warwick University, and I feel like they've given me a great opportunity to sort of push on in this field. And yeah, I think, you know, motorsport is 99% business and 1% racing, and if you don't enjoy the business side, I mean, you don't stand a chance to race. So I think drivers need to focus a bit more on this side of it, start enjoying it, start improving themselves personally, being good at talking to sponsors, be good at talking to groups of people, be used to hosting garage tours, get used to doing all those aspects, because at the end of the day, those are the most important things on a race weekend for the sponsor.
But you know what? There is, I think there is a good point where there is some of the drivers really talented, and I've been traveling a lot last year and this year, but they are very quiet people, and as I can see, you can't do nothing with their character. You know, what would you advise for these people?
My advice for any driver is be yourself. You know, I wouldn't sell anybody to be like me. I think you need to find your own way to do it, but sometimes that does mean going out of your comfort zone. At the end of the day, this is a job. You don't like any aspect. You don't like every aspect of any job. There's always something you don't want to do that you have to do. Just because this is a mixture of your hobby and your job doesn't mean that you don't have to do the hard bits. So every driver finds something hard. I find stuff personally hard, and I have to get around it in some way. So I think, you know, the drivers that are a bit quieter, you know, they need to make sure that they're giving me exposure and they're giving me experience to their sponsors. But then drivers that are really, really confident at speaking and talking, you know, they suffer in other areas. So I think it's just about, you know, bettering yourself and always being willing to learn.
And I think it's always good to, like you said in your speech, it's very good to team up, like, because motorsport, this is the team.
Yeah, motorsport is a team event. Every driver is in it for themselves. It's very hard to team up with another driver. I think, you know, you need to team up with other individuals in motorsport to help you overcome the issues that you have and the difficulties that you have. I've certainly done that in my career, and I found a massive success off the back of it. So I'd recommend that for any driver or team out there, is partnering with people that are experts in what they do, and maybe those are areas you're not an expert in.
Thank you very much. So I think it might be safer if I just try and click through so that it doesn't beep at me again. So I hope everybody's taken something away from today. You know, I've got, I'll get around to it, a little summary slide, and then we're going to go on to some prizes. We've got a few prizes to give away, because I feel like everybody that's taken their time on a Sunday afternoon to come and listen to a talk on sponsorship at the BRDC deserves to then be on the chance of winning some stuff. You guys have taken the initiative in the motorsport industry. Your competitors who aren't here haven't. So we'll do that, and then we'll open it up to the floor. There you go. So then we'll open it up to the floor for Q&A, and there's refreshments and chocolate and cookies at the back, so feel free to help yourself. So just in summary, I think everybody's made some very, very valid points. First of all, I'd always say focus on the business side of motorsport now. It is never too early to start. If this is the first sort of moment where the penny drops and you come away from here and go, you know what, I'm going to change the way I've done this, I'm going to now approach it in this way, then that is fantastic. And if just one person goes away from today feeling like that, then it's all been worthwhile. I think every driver that makes it has that penny drop moment at some point. and hopefully that'll be the start of your career. Look for advice from experienced individuals and trustworthy individuals. Like I mentioned right at the start, there's some people out there who are just after themselves and will try and take advantage of people with less experience than them. I've put together a great panel of expert speakers tonight, and I'm sure none of them would mind you getting in contact with them to ask any follow-up questions or speak to them before we all have to leave. And obviously then Next Level Motorsport and myself are always on offer to give any advice if needed. Create a long-term plan, go for that 5-year plan and start on that now. Decide on your focus areas. Not everybody is good at everything. Personally, I really dislike social media, which is why I get somebody to do mine for me. I lead it and I generate it, but at the end of the day, across a race weekend, I get somebody else to do it. It's important to partner with people and create a team around you. I think Enzo mentioned that, because not one person can do this. You have to have a team. This is such a big thing to take on. Invest in learning at the start of your journey. Okay, a lot of things in motorsport cost money. I speak to a lot of drivers and a lot of parents, and they say, "Oh, well, we'll invest in that next year, or we'll wait till his first win." All you're doing then is that win, that chance may never come. It might have come, however, if you'd invested earlier in all the things you needed to know. Okay, so take the time to learn this winter. If you're going to give yourself a New Year's resolution, pick something in the motorsport sponsorship business sector and focus on that for next year. And then finally, be a passionate leader. The best piece of advice that Andy Creer ever gave me, he told me that I have to be the leader of my team. The driver is the focal point of any race team, of any race series. We are not the be-all and end-all. There's a big team around us, but we're the focal point. It's up to us to lead our team around us. That means your engineers, your mechanics, your race teams, but also your sponsors. You've got to bring them along for the journey, and that requires leadership. So that's the biggest piece of advice I ever got, and it's definitely served me very well. And then the final one is enjoy the journey. I mean, we're all here because we want to live our dream. I class myself as one of the very, very lucky few who gets to live my dream, and every single time I get onto a grid on a touring car race and I see 40,000 people watching me, you know what, I have a big smile on my face. Appreciate every single moment. I've raced in front of Formula 1 crowds at Silverstone and Barcelona, and I took the time to appreciate every single second, because you never know when it might not happen again. And I probably won't ever race in front of a Formula 1 circuit again with my journey on my trajectory, but I made sure I made the most of it when I did. So everybody here will have that small win. Now, we will go on to the prizes. So we have some fantastic prizes on offer. One of them in addition to what I've written down here as well. So the first one is in reward for all of you coming and listening to us. Next Level Motorsport wants to offer our sponsorship package and a business prospectus. So this is where we will design a business prospectus around your brand, around what you can sell and what you can offer. We'll target it to the types of companies that you'll need to target. So I've got a box here, thanks to Jen, with everybody that's signed in, or all the drivers that signed in. I will just say there are 3 or 4 drivers, mainly everybody from Richardson, that's already had this from us. So if I do pull their name out, I'll put it back if I pick somebody else. There's other prizes they can win in a little bit. So, right. Andrew Phillips. Happy days. So come to the front. I haven't got anything to give you technically, but I'll shake your hand. A round of applause. No worries. So if you speak to Chris, he'll give you the business card that you need, and we'll be in contact. Brilliant. No worries. Thank you very much. Next on our list is Brian Sims' sponsorship guide book. This is something that is really, really inspirational, and will give you so much more advice, and something you can take away with you and obviously look at more and more and more. If you don't have the chance to win it, I really would recommend buying it downstairs. I've based a lot of what I do on Brian's work, so it's definitely worth it. So there's 3 books to win, so I'll pull 3 names, and if you can come to the front and collect it. So the first name, Jade Edwards. Well, Jade. Considering I pulled the name out of that, I've just, in addition, Jade's one of the drivers that I mention quite a lot in my talks. No worries. She does something quite inspirational with sponsorship, and she's come at it a bit of a different way. She's created her 9 for 9 brand. I don't know, hands up, who's heard of that before? Yeah. So it's a little bit of a different take, and it's a product that she's created to make it a bit easier to sell and to spread her risk around sponsorship. And to be quite fair, as you're up, if you could just say a few words and explain why you did it.
Yeah, so I created the Jade Edwards 9 for 9 basically because I have grown up within the Toker paddock. My father, who's at the back there, he actually raced in British touring cars and won the Clio Cup Championship. Unfortunately, because he was chasing his dream, he didn't do many days' work and therefore earned no money to then send me racing, which I think is pretty selfish of him. But so I had to find a different way to kind of get money to go racing, and we chased lots of big companies and brands and asking for big amounts, and no one kind of came back to us. So we actually had an idea where we kind of created a entry-level sponsorship where we got small amounts from lots of different companies. So the 9 for 9 was 9 companies put in £9,000, and the payments were spread over 9 race weekends. So it was £1,000 a weekend for these companies, and suddenly it doesn't sound as daunting for them to spend £1,000 maybe a month over 9 months. It seems quite easy. So that then created an £81,000 profit for sponsorship, which is not enough for Clio Cup, which is what I've done for the last 3 seasons, but it's definitely enough to go and sign up to a team and pay the entry form and pay for your tyres and your fuel. After that then you just grab a few more little sponsorships along the way. So it was just kind of one of those things that took off, but I created a brand and I got a logo and I put it out there, and I used social media massively to advertise it, and that's how I've got every single one of those 9 for 9 sponsorships is through social media. So it was just a different idea that kind of took off, and using the fan base that British Touring Cars and Clio Cup have, pushed the idea, and here I am 3 seasons later for a token package support series. So yeah, it went really well. I'm really happy with it.
Well, thank you very much. I think Jade's story is a great one of realising that it's not working one way and finding a different way to sell it. And a lot of you will be in different situations, different amounts of money you'll need, and some you will have to be creative. So it's about trying to think outside the box as early as possible. So we've got 2 books left. Next winner, Bart Horsten? No, he must have left. Matthew Robinson. There you go. Congratulations. I'm sure Brian will happily sign it if you want him to as well. There you go.
It's worth less.
And Lorenzo Martin. There you go. Well done. So we've got 2 more. The next one is on behalf of Sports Alive. So obviously we spoke about it a little bit, and I ran the social media competition at Brands Hatch, and it worked wonders for Sports Alive and for myself. I saw a massive increase in following and interaction. And so what Sports Alive are offering is a social media competition at some point next year across one of your race weekends to basically offer the prize of £1,000 for somebody to correctly select what position you're qualifying and what time that is to 3 decimal places. Like I said, I got over 200 entries on mine and I only ran it for 48 hours. It's a really good thing to use as a bit of a bonus, so when you go to a sponsor and try and sell it for next season, you can sell this as one of the benefits you can offer them. So pull another name out of the hat. Tom Rawlings. Congratulations. Let's bring Pete up. If you take Pete's card and then get in contact with Pete, he'll organise with you how to go about it, and also Next Level Motorsport will create the graphic for you to promote it with your chosen sponsor for next year. So make sure you grab Chris's card as well, and we'll do that. And then the final prize is an hour-long sponsorship. What's it called? Consultation. Coaching session with Enzo at ISO. Something very, very useful. It gives you an opportunity to bring to the table a couple of opportunities you may have. It gives you the opportunity to sort of speak about what you've got to offer, and hopefully Enzo will be able to guide you in the right direction as to how to target those companies, or what companies to try and target, etc. So the final prize will go to Trennan Bethany? Yeah, sorry. It's either my reading or Jen's handwriting, so come up to the top. Big round of applause. Congratulations. So Enzo gives you a card. So thank you very much for turning up. I'm sure you've got a lot of questions. So what I will do is effectively open up the floor. I'll probably have to go down. So I'll invite my speakers to come and take a perch up here. And if you've got any questions, we'll try and answer a few of them, and then for the next sort of 15 minutes. And then after that, they'll be around until we leave, so you'll feel free to sort of approach us. So who would like to start? Whatever here. I'll stand. Yes.
Question for Brian, really. A few of the companies we've been contacting about sponsorship and partnering for next year, they're larger companies, but they all tend to use a marketing agency that does all their marketing for them. So they don't actually do any of that themselves. They sub it out to a PR company or marketing agency that you have to try and get through to them.
Okay.
How would you play that when they put you off that way and say, right, this is a company we use, you need to go directly to them?
Okay, well, the first thing I would then do is to say, can you please arrange a meeting with the appropriate person in that agency so that you've got an in straight away.
Okay.
If they just give you a card and say get in touch, then you'll battle. But if it comes from somebody in a senior position within the company to go and talk to our agency who are representing us, which is what I was doing. In fact, I was working for an agency before I ended up with Benetton. So that is what I would certainly do. Make sure you've got an appointment arranged for you, and then you go there and approach all lessons you've seen today, then apply, but with an agency.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the main thing I always tell drivers is if they're going to say no to you, make them say no to you. So if they try and fob you off or make it difficult for you, then always ask them to do something for you and get them to arrange a meeting. It's a lot more positive and there's a lot more strength behind it if the company is asking that agency to meet with you on their behalf. Any other?
Something that works for me and for a lot of drivers is to get sponsorship from a marketing agency. They don't really pay you. All you want is a tiny bit of help. It's a bit like with yourselves, you're probably going to get pitches after this, but if you can get someone to help you market yourself as a driver, and really what you're going to say to them is, we're going to go out into the motorsport world and find you other clients, other drivers that could use your services, but all I want you to do is just do a sponsorship proposal for me and help me sell my sponsorship to help you, and maybe a logo design or something like that. That can get you in the door. And as you build the relationship, this marketing company has got plenty of companies on their books that could be linked to them, linked to what you're offering. So it's actually, how about going to PR companies and try and get one to back you. Just with services, they'll put like an intern on you to do your brochure and stuff, but then you build a relationship and you never know where that can go. So I did it with one PR company and I got them a big 300 grand job with a touring car team that I was with, and that gave them enough money that they wouldn't have had if they weren't with me, and I got my proposal, and then I got to meet some of their clients. So it's another way. All right, doesn't really answer the question, but it's something else to think about.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Hi there. Firstly, just many thanks for the great speech that you've all given, you've put together. Really appreciate it. I'm here, and the friends are here, representing a son and daughter who race Bambino cars, so they're obviously 7 years of age. Is there anything different that you would approach, obviously being a young age, in regards to trying to attract sponsorship, or is it the same sort of procedure you go about it, whatever age?
I was approached 3 years ago by parents of a young, very, very young karter, and they said, you know, how can we promote? There's no TV coverage of the races, there's no media coverage, and what have you got to offer? And I said, well, let's not do the impossible. Let's sit down rather, or have a chat as to what other things you can bring to the party. And it turned out that this young karter's mother was a TV chef. And I said, well, that is what you bring to the party. You build something around yourself. Now, I'm not saying that you've got to be a TV chef in your case, but I'm sure with you two, between you, there is something that you could bring to a company that has some benefit and involve the karting within that. What we did, for example, with this cooking, I said, what if you were to offer a company to come on board as a sponsor for one race, give them a little bit of hospitality, and part of the deal is that the mother would go and do a lunchtime cooking session within that company. Multiply that by 10 races in the year, you cover all the sponsorship. Now you've got to be innovative, and obviously I don't know your circumstances, so I can't answer. But that's what you've got to do. You're not going to sell a 7-year-old boy in karting in the conventional way.
I would also add to that, something I tell a lot of people, and it can work for every driver in this room who's starting their journey. Don't think about sponsorship as your only way of funding it. You know, think about what you can organise. You know, in terms of go to your local karting club, ask them for a discounted rate. You're going to sell a corporate event at their place of work. You ask them to do it half price because you're going to bring 30 new local companies to them. It might cost you £200 a team. If you sell it for £400 a team, then you've made £200 profit per team times 30. That's a couple of £1,000. You can do the same with golf days. You've got to look at it creatively. You know, sadly, when you're in karting, it's a very, very difficult sell to sell true sponsorship to any sort of company, apart from local ones that just want the good publicity of supporting a local child. And to be quite fair, that is quite a good angle to try. But if you want to organise an event and try and make a profit off that event, that's not sponsorship, but it pays for your racing. So I try and look a little bit differently at it to try and raise some money in other ways, so that you can get him up the ladder far enough that he will end up in, for instance, juniors, or the Junior Saloon Cup Championship, or something that actually has some marketable value, and then you can start on the sponsorship. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Lion from Motorsport. 2 years ago, I had a really big deal to go and do, as a team, go and do European TCR, upwards of like £600,000. Basically, we've set a team up. The sponsorship deal was meant to be put in. The middleman took all the money, which is, I've heard it happen before. Someone that you might know, George, Luciano Bassetti, he was one of my drivers. Similar thing happened to him. Now I'm going back out to try and find sponsorship again, but I feel like everything I'm doing is just either going on dead ears or I'm just wasting my time. I've got a portfolio package, all that's done, but literally I just cannot seem to get into a doorway. And I'm just wondering how maybe I could change things to maybe get into a doorway to move it on to get back to where I was 2 years ago. Because it was.
So you're finding it hard to speak to the right person?
Yeah, basically a second time around.
Yeah, if you are, and I'm sure everybody in the room is having trouble getting through the door, be creative, stand out. Something I tell any driver that I work with is if it's not working one way, find another way of getting in the door. You know, walk into a company and hand them your prospectus yourself personally. Yes, that takes time and obviously requires a car and a license to drive, and I know a lot of drivers are young. Or, you know, write a letter like Brian said, phone the PA to the CEO. Try something different if it's not working, how you're doing it. And to be quite fair, you know, LinkedIn, emails, they fall on deaf ears more times than not. I run my racing, I run Next Level. I'm not a particularly busy person compared to a CEO of a multinational company, and yet I get messages on LinkedIn with people offering their services, and I forget for weeks to respond. And I feel very, very bad, and I'm not a particularly busy person in comparison, so you just think how easy it is for somebody that gets 100 of them a day. You know, so find a way of being different and standing out, and then hopefully the numbers game will still apply. It's just you'll knock some of the numbers off that total big number.
The problem is I found it, I got the number first time round. So
well, then you just got very, very, very lucky.
That's the worst thing.
And then very unlucky afterwards. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But it's not getting easier. No. So I think it's just keep trying. Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes.
Can you hear me from here? I'm looking forward.
We can hear you.
Yeah, so my name is Tarek, I'm from Regionals Racing today, and I was just wondering more on what you mentioned before, just creative ways of creating that initial contact with the sponsors, and just wanted to know if there's anything else other than like letters or phone calls that you could do.
So in my personal experience, I worked with a driver a few years ago who was in Jeanette Juniors, and he subsequently decided to stop racing for personal reasons. But his dad ran a company that did a lot of promotional material, and we came up with a lot of ideas to get creative. So you can buy video cards that you can post to people, and you can do a little 1 minute video, whether that's just on an iPhone to camera or whether you get it professionally produced. It's a way of standing out. Obviously you can create calendars and you can give away stuff that reminds somebody over a period of time about you. All that I would say is if you're going to get creative, you have to weigh up the cost of producing something like that versus the reward. So if you currently are racing and you've got a bit of budget to invest in years 2, 3, 4 down the line, then maybe it's worth spending a little bit of money on marketing yourself, just like any company would. But if you're struggling just to get the drive initially for next year, then obviously you've got to be quite frugal with your options. But I think there's many ways of standing out personally, and I think you have to come across as an individual and you have to stand out. So, you know, very simply, going to the companies personally, ringing them on the phone, sending them letters, and just, you know, reminding them that you're around. And I personally see that as the best way. Anybody else has got any advice for that?
Yeah, little one. If you position yourself as set up a company, and your company is not being a race driver, your company is, we offer company solutions through sport. And then solutions could be, we need to motivate staff, we need to get our brand out there and actually launch a product. There'll be certain solutions and pains and goals that the company's got. And if you base around 3 products, say, around the biggest problems and pains that companies have nowadays, and you set your own limited company up saying company solutions through sport, then you can go to network events as that person. Doesn't matter if you're a race driver, it's not even coming into it, but you're offering companies solutions, and that allows you into the network world. And if you go to London, there's plenty of network parties where you can just hand out your business cards, have nice brochures and say this is how we allow you to, or can help you achieve your goal through sport, happens to be motorsport. And again, you could actually sell someone who has got big profile, and you're just a salesperson for that, and then you earn money off that. So you've got to think a bit clever now, not just it's all about you. This is how can I provide value for companies first and just make a living doing it. So much of a living that I can use it on my race and pay for a budget. So I hope that gives you another way.
Yeah, and finally, I had a great personal experience. I tend not to, I try to start conversations, not necessarily around sponsorship, but just around people's interests and stuff. And I find if you contact people on LinkedIn and you follow them and you interact with them over a period of months, based on the posts they put out and what their interests are. I connected with somebody that owned a Ferrari. He used to post about it quite a lot. I always liked it. I realised that one day he put up a post that he got a stone chip on his Ferrari, and obviously that can be a very expensive paint job to repair. So I'm partnered with a national detailing firm, so I sent him a private message and said, oh, well, to protect your car in the future, why not consider this? I've got a personal connection, so I'll put in a good word, and I organised a discount for him to get his car wrapped with paint protection film. And ultimately, off the back of that, he then gave me the meeting. Now, he was never giving me the meeting, but I solved a problem that he had in any sort of time in life. It wasn't specifically around motorsport, it was just putting somebody in touch with somebody else. And moving forward, one of my biggest sponsorship deals that could come off next year won't require sponsorship at all. It's a contact I put in touch with BMW because they want to deal with BMW, and I've organised a commission structure off the back of it, that if that deal goes ahead, then I could earn hundreds of thousands of pounds towards my racing for many years to come. The company in question refused to go on my car. They don't want to do sponsorship. They've got absolutely no interest in motorsport. They've got an interest in BMW, and I can provide them with that. So, try and be a little bit creative with how you initially try and contact people. Don't just go in with a hard sell all the time. Sometimes, starting a conversation and finding a bit more out about those people can help you actually solve the problem for them.
One tip I'd like to give you, and that is finding leads. Have you heard of a magazine called Campaign? You know the Campaign? Well, that is a magazine that I used to subscribe to a great deal when I was really active in sponsorship. And I remember on one occasion, I'd left Benetton Formula One. They sold out to Renault, you may remember, back in 2001. And I spent a year as head of marketing for Bath Rugby. A friend of mine got me the job, and it was fascinating. And I was looking out of the window one day at Bath. It was a miserable, cold, wet day. And I was reading Campaign magazine, and I saw that Nescafe had just launched, or was about to launch, a new product, which was a can of coffee, that when you pulled the ring on the can, heated the coffee. And I picked up the phone to the company involved, and I said, hey, I'm the marketing director for Bath Rugby. I'm sitting looking out at the wreck in Bath at our grandstand, which tomorrow will be full for a match. It's going to be cold, miserable, and everything else. You should have your products here to sample, to give to people, etc., etc. And that started a dialogue, which sadly we didn't do a sponsorship deal in the end for other reasons. But that took me a long way down the road. And reading Campaign and seeing new products that are coming out, people on the move, that's a fantastic one, because when a person moves company, very often they go to another company, new broom sweeps clean, they're ready for some new ideas, new thinking. So some magazines like that are really worth going through with a fine-tooth comb, particularly at a higher level when you're on the national level. On a local basis, the same thing with local newspapers and business magazines.
Perfect. Right, well, we've got time for one more question. Very assertive.
Typically, contacting businesses with contact them during business hours. So how would you advise
That's a very good question. Did everybody hear that? Yes? No, that's a very good one. Anybody got any advice on that one? Or no? Right. What I'd say is, I mean, obviously I'm a full-time racing driver along with my company, so I don't have a full-time job. But I've worked with drivers that do, and I think something that was very interesting to me is people open their mail, read emails, check social media at 2 key points during the day, and it's on their it's on their commutes to and from work, or immediately when they arrive at work. So I'm sure, as the case with you, on your way to work, if you use the train or public transport, so especially in London, you'll be checking your phone the whole way because there's nothing really else to do. And then when you arrive at work, there's always that half an hour where you get settled in, you check your emails, you drink a cup of coffee, and you might check your LinkedIn profile or something like that. So what I'd say is, wake up a bit earlier, or write your emails the night before and set them to send in the morning, or at like 4 o'clock, get 5-10 minutes to send your emails then. It's just being smart with your time, like Enzo said, maybe your lunch hour as well. It's not easy, but to be quite fair, 11 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not the time when somebody really wants to be bothered with something that isn't a direct business benefit, because they're in the full swing of their day. Where you want to catch them is Monday morning when they're fresh from their weekend and they've got a little bit of time just to kind of sort themselves into their daily routine. And then, yet again, getting creative. I mean, writing letters and sending those on a weekend. They'll arrive Monday morning, Tuesday, and just setting yourself a weekly plan, like Enzo said, and set, Sunday night, just pre-plan 20, 30 emails or letters, get them in the post, and then you don't need to worry, you just need to respond to a phone call or an email that you might get from a set.
I think most CEOs work after 5.
Yeah, most CEOs don't turn
It's
up.
after 5, don't worry, just still go. Not all companies, obviously, but yeah, the workforce goes.
I got told if you're targeting a London-based company, ring at 8 o'clock in the morning, because most of them are in at 8 o'clock in the morning, because to avoid a rush hour they have different start times, and that was a piece of advice that I got that worked relatively well. But yeah, obviously you don't want to bother them at 10 o'clock at night, but most CEOs never turn up, so yeah. Well, thank you very much. First of all, can I have a big round of applause for all of our speakers? Very kind of them to take the time out of their weekend to come and give some friendly advice to you. First, thank you for all coming. I know it's a weekend, I know it's a Sunday afternoon. I hope you guys feel there's some value in what you've listened to. It certainly worked for my personal racing career, so I hope it works for yours. We have to vacate the premises by roughly 5 o'clock, but in the next 20-25 minutes, then feel free to come up and have a chat. Grab a coffee and some chocolate at the back before you leave, and make sure that you check out Brian's books downstairs. And yeah, thank you very much for coming.
And because you said you have 2 business degrees, yes?
Yes.
Can you tell me what was first? Is the motorsport push you to learn the business degree, or the business push you into the motorsport?
No. I got into motorsport when I was 10, so that's definitely my driving focus. I got into business. I did an engineering degree at Warwick University, and I found the business aspects more interesting, so I've ended a business degree. So actually, it wasn't really motorsport that pushed me into doing it. But what I learned in that is that motorsport is a business, and I started treating it like as such when I left university at 23, and ever since I've elevated my career to heights I never thought I'd achieve, and it's all because of my approach, and this is why I host events like this, and I run Next Level Motorsport, and I help teams like Richardson Racing and their drivers to try and help them realise the same thing I did.
And I understand this is your life experience, like motorsport and the business degree, but also there is because BTCC drivers, the other motorsport drivers, there is examples where people don't have business degree, they not quite good in the business, but they still finding sponsorship. Is that because of their driving skills?
Well, it's a mixture of things. There's so many factors. At the end of the day, you don't know why somebody secures a sponsorship deal. We're just all happy that they do. You don't need a business degree to do this. You just need a lot of hard work. And the drivers that are racing for free and are making a professional career out of this are the ones that work hardest. And that's the be all and end all.
Can I say, if you're motivated with something, you definitely will have to work hard on it?
I think if you want to be an elite athlete, it's the hardest thing you'll ever try and do.
If there is no future, means there is no past. Pedal to the metal.